Major Barbara by Bernard Shaw.
What's the matter?
Presently, Stephen. Don't begin to read, Stephen. I shall require all your attention.
It was only while I was waiting.
Don't make excuses, Stephen. Now, I've not kept you waiting very long, I think.
Not at all, Mother.
Bring me my cushion. Sit down. Don't fiddle with your tie, Stephen. There's nothing the matter with it.
I beg your pardon.
How are you attending to me, Stephen?
Of course, Mother.
No, it's not of course. I want something much more than your everyday matter of course attention. I am going to speak to you very seriously, Stephen. I wish you would let that chain alone.
Have I done anything to annoy you, Mother? If so, it was quite unintentional.
Nonsense. My poor boy, did you think I was angry with you?
What is it then, Mother? You are making me very uneasy.
Stephen, may I ask how soon you intend to realize that you are a grown-up man and that I am only a woman?
Only a...
Don't repeat my words, Stephen, please. It is a most aggravating habit. You must learn to face life seriously, Stephen. I really cannot bear the whole burden of our family affairs any longer. You must advise me. You must assume the responsibility.
I?
Yes, you, of course. You were 24 last June. You've been at Harrow and Cambridge. You've been to India and Japan. You must know a lot of things now. Unless you have wasted your time most scandalously. Well, advise me.
You know I have never interfered in the household.
No, I should think not. I don't want you to order the dinner.
I mean in our family affairs.
Well, you must interfere now, for they are getting quite beyond me.
I have thought sometimes that perhaps I ought. But really, Mother, I know so little about them, and what I do know is so painful. It is so impossible to mention some things to you.
I suppose you mean your father.
Yes.
My dear, we can't go on all our lives not mentioning him. Of course, you were quite right not to open the subject until I asked you to. But you are old enough now to be taken into my confidence and to help me to deal with him about the girls.
But the girls are all right. They are engaged.
Yes, I've made a very good match for Sarah. Charles Lomax will be a millionaire at 35, but that is 10 years ahead. And in the meantime, his trustees cannot, under the terms of his father's will, allow him more than £800 a year.
But the will says also that if he increases his income by his own exertions, they may double the increase.
Charles Lomax's exertions are much more likely to decrease his income than to increase it. Sarah will have to find at least another £800 a year for the next 10 years, and even then, they will be as poor as church mice. And what about Barbara? I thought Barbara was going to make the most brilliant career of all of you. And what does she do? Joins the Salvation Army, discharges her maid, lives on £1 a week, and walks in one evening with a professor of Greek whom she has picked up in the street and who pretends to be a Salvationist and actually plays the big drum for her in public because he has fallen head over ears in love with her.
I was certainly rather taken aback when I heard they were engaged. The Cusins is a very nice fellow, certainly. Nobody would ever guess that he was born in Australia, but...
Oh, Adolphus Cusins will make a very good husband. After all, nobody can say a word against Greek. It stamps a man at once as an educated gentleman. And my family, thank heaven, is not a pig-headed Tory one. We are Whigs and believe in liberty. Let snobbish people say what they please. Barbara shall marry, not the man they like, but the man I like.
Of course, I was thinking only of his income. However, he is not likely to be extravagant.
Don't be too sure of that, Stephen. I know you're quiet, simple, refined, poetic people like Adolphus, quite content with the best of everything. They cost more than your extravagant people who are always as mean as they are second rate. No, Barbara will need at least £2,000 a year. You see, it means 2 additional households. Besides, my dear, you must marry soon. I don't approve of the present fashion of philandering bachelors and late marriages, and I am trying to arrange something for you.
It's very good of you, Mother, but perhaps I had better arrange that for myself.
Nonsense! You are much too young to begin matchmaking. You would be taken in by some pretty little nobody. Of course, I don't mean that you're not to be consulted. You know that as well as I do. Now don't sulk, Stephen.
I'm not sulking, Mother. What has all this got to do with my father?
My dear Stephen, where is the money to come from? It is easy enough for you and the other children to live on my income as long as we are in the same house, but I cannot keep 4 families in 4 separate houses. You know how poor my father is. He has barely 7,000 a year now, and really, if he were not the Earl of Stevenage, he would have to give up society. He can do nothing for us. He says, naturally enough, that it is absurd that he should be asked to provide for the children of a man who is rolling in money. You see, Stephen, your father must be fabulously wealthy because there's always a war going on somewhere.
You need not remind me of that, Mother. I have hardly ever opened a newspaper in my life without seeing our name in it. The Undershaft torpedo, the Undershaft quick firers, the Undershaft 10-inch, the Undershaft disappearing rampart gun, the Undershaft submarine, and now the Undershaft aerial battleship. At Harrow, they called me the Woolwich infant. At Cambridge, it was the same. A little brood at King's who was always trying to get up revivals spoilt my Bible, your first birthday present to me, by writing under my name, son and heir to Undershaft and Lazarus, death and destruction dealers, address Christendom and Judea. Well, that was not so bad as the way I was kowtowed to everywhere because my father was making millions by selling cannons.
It is not only the cannons, but the war loans that Lazarus arranges under cover of giving credit for the cannons. You know, Stephen, it's perfectly scandalous. Those 2 men, Andrew Undershaft and Lazarus, positively have Europe under their thumbs. That is why your father is able to behave as he does. He is above the law. Do you think Bismarck or Gladstone or Disraeli could have openly defied every social and moral obligation all their lives as your father has? They simply wouldn't have dared. I asked Gladstone to take it up. I asked the Times to take it up. I asked the Lord Chamberlain to take it up. But it was just like asking them to declare war on the Sultan. They wouldn't. They said they couldn't touch him. I believe they were afraid.
What could they do? He does not actually break the law.
Not break the law. He is always breaking the law. He broke the law when he was born. His parents were not married.
Mother, is that true?
Of course it's true. That was why we separated.
Well, he married without letting you know this.
Oh, no. To do Andrew justice, that was not the sort of thing he did. Besides, you know the Undershaft motto, unashamed. Everybody knew.
But you said that's why you separated.
Yes, because he was not content with being a foundling himself. He wanted to disinherit you for another foundling. That was what I couldn't stand.
Do you mean for...
Don't stammer, Stephen. Speak distinctly.
But this is so frightful to me, Mother, to have to speak to you about such things.
It's not pleasant for me either, especially if you're still so childish that you must make it worse by a display of embarrassment. It is only in the middle class, Stephen, that people get into a state of dumb, helpless horror when they find that there are wicked people in the world. In our class, we have to decide what is to be done with wicked people, and nothing should disturb our self-possession. Now, ask your question properly.
Mother, you have no consideration for me. For heaven's sake, either treat me as a child, as you always do, and tell me nothing at all, or tell me everything and let me take it as best I can.
Treat you as a child? What do you mean? It is most unkind and ungrateful to you to say such a thing. You know I have never treated any of you as children. I've always made you my companions and friends and allowed you perfect freedom to do and say whatever you liked, so long as you liked what I could approve of.
I dare say we have been the very imperfect children of a very perfect mother. But I do beg you to let me alone for once and tell me about this horrible business of my father wanting to set me aside for another son.
Another son? I never said anything of the kind. I never dreamt of such a thing. This is what comes of interrupting me.
But you said that...
Now be a good boy, Stephen, and listen to me patiently. The Undershafts are descended from a foundling in the parish of St. Andrew Undershaft in the city. That was long ago in the reign of James I. Well, this foundling was adopted by an armourer and gunmaker. In the course of time, the foundling succeeded to the business, and from some notion of gratitude or some vow or something, he adopted another foundling and left the business to him. And that foundling did the same, and even ever since that, the canon business has always been left to an adopted foundling named Andrew Undershaft.
But did they never marry, and were there no legitimate sons?
Oh, yes. They married, just as your father did, and they were rich enough to buy land for their own children and leave them well provided for. But they always adopted and trained some foundling to succeed them in the business. And of course, they always quarreled with their wives furiously over it. Your father was adopted in that way, and he pretends to consider himself bound to keep up the tradition and adopt somebody to leave the business to. Of course, I was not going to stand that. There may have been some reason for it when the Undershafts could only marry women in their own class, whose sons were not fit to govern great estates. But there could be no excuse for passing over my son.
I am afraid I should make a poor hand of managing a cannon foundry.
Nonsense! You could easily get a manager and pay him a salary.
My father evidently had no great opinion of my capacity.
Stuff, child. You were only a baby. It had nothing to do with your capacity. Andrew did it on principle, just as he did every perverse and wicked thing on principle. When my father remonstrated, Andrew actually told him to his face that history tells us of only two successful institutions. One, the Undershaft firm, and the other, the Roman Empire under the Antonines. That was because the Antonine emperors all adopted their successors. Such rubbish! The Stevenages are as good as the Antonines, I hope, and you are a Stevenage. But that was Andrew all over. There you have the man, always clever and unanswerable when he was defending nonsense and wickedness, always awkward and sullen when he had to behave sensibly and decently.
Then it was on my account that your home life was broken up, Mother. I am sorry.
Well, dear, there were other differences. I really cannot bear an immoral man. I'm not a Pharisee, I hope, and I should not have minded his merely doing wrong things. We are none of us perfect. But your father didn't exactly do wrong things. He said them and thought them. That was what was so dreadful. He really had a sort of religion of wrongness, just as one doesn't mind men practicing immorality, so long as they own that they are not in the wrong by preaching morality. So I couldn't forgive Andrew for preaching immorality while he practiced morality. You would all have grown up without principles, without any knowledge of right and wrong. If he had been in the house, You know, my dear, your father was a very attractive man in some ways. Children did not dislike him, and he took advantage of it to put the wickedest ideas into their heads and make them quite unmanageable. I did not dislike him myself. Very far from it. But nothing can bridge over moral disagreement.
All this simply bewilders me, Mother. People may differ about matters of opinion or even about religion, but how can they differ about right and wrong? Right is right and wrong is wrong, and if a man cannot distinguish them properly, he is either a fool or a rascal, that's all.
That's my own boy. Your father never could answer that. He used to laugh and get out of it under cover of some affectionate nonsense. And now that you understand the situation, what do you advise me to do?
Well, what can you do?
I must get the money somehow.
We cannot take money from him. I'd rather go live in some cheap place like Bedford Square or even Hampstead than take a farthing of his money.
But after all, Stephen, our present income comes from Andrew.
I never knew that.
Well, you surely didn't suppose your grandfather had anything to give me. The Stevenages could not do everything for you. We gave you social position. Andrew had to contribute something. He had a very good bargain, I think.
So we are utterly dependent on him and his cannons, then?
Certainly not. The money is settled, but he provided it. So you see, it is not a question of taking money from him or not. It is simply a question of how much. I don't want any more for myself.
Nor do I.
But Sarah does, and Barbara does. That is, Charles Lomax and Adolphus Cusins will cost them more. So I must put my pride in my pocket and ask for it, I suppose. That is your advice, Stephen, is it not?
No.
Stephen!
Of course, if you are determined...
I am not determined. I ask your advice, and I'm waiting for it. I will not have all the responsibility thrown on my shoulders.
No, I would die sooner than ask him for another penny.
You mean that I must ask him? Very well, Stephen. It shall be as you wish. You will be glad to know that your grandfather concurs, but he thinks I ought to ask Andrew to come here and see the girls. After all, he must have some natural affection for them.
Ask him here.
Do not repeat my words, Stephen. Where else can I ask him?
I never expected you to ask him at all.
Now don't tease, Stephen. Come, you see that it is necessary that he should pay us a visit, don't you?
I suppose so, if the girls cannot do without money.
Thank you, Stephen. I knew you would give me the right advice when it was properly explained to you. I've asked your father to come this evening. Don't jump, Stephen. It fidgets me.
Do you mean to say that my father is coming here tonight, that he may be here at any moment?
I said 9. Ring the bell, please. It is 10 minutes to 9 yet, and I have to prepare the girls. I asked Charles Lomax and Adolphus to dinner on purpose that they might be here. Andrew had better see them in case he should cherish any delusions as to their being capable of supporting their wives. Morrison, go up to the drawing room and tell everybody to come down here at once. I don't know how Barbara will take it. Ever since they made her a major in the Salvation Army, she has developed a propensity to have her own way and order people about, which quite cows me sometimes. It's not ladylike. I'm sure I don't know where she picked it up. Anyhow, Barbara shan't bully me, but still it's just as well that your father should be here before she has time to refuse to meet him or make a fuss. Don't look nervous, Stephen. It will only encourage Barbara to make difficulties. I am nervous enough, goodness knows, but I don't show it.
Are Charlie and Dolly to come in?
Barbara, I will not have Charles called Charlie. The vulgarity of it positively makes me ill.
It's all right, Mother. Charlie is quite correct nowadays. Are they to come in?
Yes, if they will behave themselves.
Come in, Dolly, and behave yourself.
Come in, Charlie.
Sit down, all of you. I don't in the least know what you are laughing at, Adolphus. I'm surprised at you, though I expected nothing better than from Charles Lomax.
Barbara has been trying to teach me the West Ham Salvation March.
I see nothing to laugh at in that, nor should you if you're really converted.
You were not present. It was really funny, believe me.
Ripping!
Be quiet, Charles. Now listen to me, children. Your father is coming here this evening.
Oh, I say.
You're not called on to say anything, Charles?
Are you serious, Mother?
Of course I'm serious. It's on your account, Sarah, and also on Charles's. I hope you're not going to object, Barbara.
I? Why should I? My father has a soul to be saved like anybody else. He's quite welcome as far as I'm concerned.
But really, don't you know? Oh, I say.
What do you wish to convey, Charles?
Well, you must admit this is a bit thick.
Adolphus, you are a professor of Greek. Can you translate Charles Lomax's remarks into reputable English for us?
If I may say so, Lady Britt, I think Charles has actually rather happily expressed what we all feel. Homer, speaking of Autocleus, used the same phrase.
Not that I mind, no. Sarah don't.
Thank you. Have I your permission, Adolphus, to invite my own husband to my own house?
You have my unhesitating support in everything you do.
Sarah, have you nothing to say?
Do you mean that he is coming regularly to live here?
Certainly not. The spare room is ready for him if he likes to stay for a day or two and see a little more of you. But there are limits.
Well, he can't eat us, I suppose. I don't mind.
I wonder how the old man will take it.
Much as the old woman will, no doubt, Charles.
I didn't mean. At least I...
You don't think, Charles. You never do. And the result is you never mean anything. And now, please attend to me, children. Your father will be quite a stranger to us.
I suppose he hasn't seen Sarah since she was a little kid.
Not since she was a little kid, Charles, as you express it with that elegance of diction and refinement of thought that seems never to desert you. Accordingly, now I have forgotten what I was going to say. That comes of your provoking me to be sarcastic, Charles. Adolphus, will you kindly tell me where I was?
You were saying that as Mr. Undershaft has not seen his children since they were babies, he will form his opinion of the way you have brought them up from their behavior tonight, and that, therefore, you wish us all to be particularly careful to conduct ourselves well, especially Charles.
Look here, Lady Britt, I didn't say that.
I did, Charles. Adolphus's recollection is perfectly correct. It is most important that you should be good. And I do beg you, for once, not to pair off into opposite corners and giggle and whisper while I am speaking to your father.
All right, Mother. We'll do you credit.
Remember, Charles, that Sarah will want to feel proud of you instead of ashamed of you.
Oh, I say, there's nothing to be exactly proud of, don't you know?
Well, try and look as if there was.
Might I speak a word to you, my lady?
Nonsense. Show him up.
Yes, my lady.
Does Morrison know who he is?
Of course. Morrison has always been with us.
Must be a regular corker for him, don't you know?
Is this a moment to get on my nerves, Charles, with your outrageous expressions?
But this is something out of the ordinary, really.
The, Mr. Undershaft.
Good evening, Andrew.
How do you do, my dear?
You look a good deal older.
Well, I am somewhat older. time has stood still with you.
Rubbish. This is your family.
Is it so large? I'm sorry to say my memory is failing very badly in some things.
How do you do?
Yes. I can see that you are my eldest. I am very glad to meet you again, my boy.
Oh, no, but look here, don't you know? Oh, I say.
Andrew, do you mean to say that you don't remember how many children you have?
Well, I'm afraid well, they've grown so much. Am I making any ridiculous mistakes? I may as well confess, I recollect only one son. But, well, so many things have happened since, of course.
Andrew, you're talking nonsense. Of course you have only one son.
So perhaps you will be good enough to introduce me, my dear?
That is Charles Lomax, who is engaged to Sarah.
Oh. My dear sir, I beg your pardon.
Not at all. Delighted, I assure you.
This is Stephen.
Happy to make your acquaintance, Mr. Stephen. Then you must be my son. How are you, my young friend? He is very like you, my love.
You flatter me, Mr. Undershaft. My name is Cusins, engaged to Barbara. That is Major Barbara Undershaft of the Salvation Army. That is Sarah, your second daughter. This is Stephen Undershaft, your son.
My dear Stephen, I beg your pardon.
Not at all.
Mr. Cusins, I am much indebted to you for explaining so precisely. Barbara, my dear.
Sarah.
Sarah, of course. Barbara, I am right this time, I hope.
Quite right.
Sit down, all of you. Sit down, Andrew.
Thank you, my love.
Takes you some time to find out exactly where you're doing, huh? Don't it?
Well, that's not what embarrasses me, Mr. Lomax. My difficulty is that if I play the part of a father, I shall produce the effect of an intrusive stranger, and if I play the part of a discreet stranger, I may appear a callous father.
There is no need for you to play any part at all, Andrew. You'd much better be sincere and natural.
Yes, my dear. I dare say that will be best. Yeah. Well, here I am. Now, what can I do for you all?
You need not do anything, Andrew. You are one of the family. You can sit with us and enjoy yourself. Charles Lomax, if you can behave yourself, behave yourself. If not, leave the room.
Oh, I'm awfully sorry, Lady Brett, but really, you know, upon my soul.
Why don't you laugh if you want to, Shirley? It's good for your inside.
Barbara, you have the education of a lady. Please let your father see that, and don't talk like a street girl.
Oh, never mind me, my dear. As you know, I'm no gentleman myself, and, well, I was never educated.
Well, nobody'd know it, I assure you. You look all right, you know.
Let me advise you to study Greek, Mr. Undershaft. Greek scholars are privileged men. Few of them know Greek, and none of them know anything else. But their position is unchallengeable. Other languages are the qualifications of waiters and commercial travelers. Greek is to a man of position what the hallmark is to silver.
Jolly, don't be insincere. Jolly, fetch your concertina and play something for us.
Perhaps that sort of thing isn't in your line, eh?
No, I am particularly fond of music.
Are you? Then I'll get it.
Do you play, Barbara?
Only the tambourine, but Jolly is teaching me the concertina.
Is Charlie also a member of the Salvation Army?
No. He says it's a bad form to be a dissenter. But I don't despair of Jolly. I made him come yesterday to a meeting at the dock gates and take collection in his hat.
It is not my doing, Andrew. Barbara is old enough to take her own way. She has no father to advise her.
Oh, yes, she has. There are no orphans in the Salvation Army.
Your father there has a great many children and plenty of experience, eh?
Just so. How did you come to understand that?
Come in, Charles. Play us something at once.
Righto!
One moment, Mr. Lomax. I am rather interested in the Salvation Army. Its motto might be my own. blood and fire.
But not your sort of blood and fire, you know.
Oh, my sort of blood cleanses, my sort of fire purifies.
So do ours. I'll come down tomorrow to my shelter, the West Ham shelter, and see what we're doing. We're going to march to a great meeting in the Assembly Hall at Miles End. Come and see the shelter and then march with us. It will do you a lot of good. Can you play anything?
Oh, in my youth, I earned pennies, even shillings occasionally, in the streets and public house parlors by my natural talent for step dancing. Later on, I became a member of the Undershaft Orchestral Society and performed passably on the tenor trombone.
Oh.
I say.
Many a sinner has played himself into heaven on the trombone, thanks to the army.
Yes, but what about the cannon business, don't you know? Well, getting into heaven not exactly your line, is it?
Charles!
But it stands to reason, don't it? The cannon business may be necessary and all that, but we can't get on without cannons, but it isn't right, you know. Well, on the other hand, there might be a certain amount of tosh about the Salvation Army. I belong to the established church myself, but still you can't deny that it's religion, and you can't go against religion, can you? Well, at least you're downright immoral, don't you know? Downright immoral, definitely.
You hardly appreciate my position, Mr. Lomax.
Oh, I'm not saying anything against you personally, you know.
Quite so, quite so. But consider for a moment. Here I am, a manufacturer of mutilation and murder. I find myself in a especially amiable humor just now, because this morning, down at the foundry, we blew 27 dummy soldiers into fragments with a gun, which formerly destroyed only 13.
Well, the more destructive war becomes, the sooner it will be abolished, eh?
Not at all. The more destructive war becomes, the more fascinating we find it. No, Mr. Lomax, I am obliged to you for making the usual excuse for my trade, but I'm not ashamed of it. I am one of those men who keep their morals and their business in watertight compartments. All the spare money my trade rivals spend on hospitals, and cathedrals, and other receptacles of conscience money, I devote to experiments and researches in improved methods of destroying life and property. I've always done so, and I always shall. Therefore, your Christmas card moralities of peace on earth and goodwill among men are of no use to me. Your Christianity, which enjoins you to resist not evil and turn the other cheek, would make me bankrupt. My morality, my religion, must have a place for cannons and torpedoes in it.
You speak as if there were half a dozen moralities and religions to choose from, instead of one true morality and one true religion.
Well, for me, there is only one true morality, but it might not fit you, as you do not manufacture aerial battleships. There is only one true morality for every man, but every man has not the same true morality.
Would you mind saying that again? I didn't quite follow it.
Quite simple. As Euripides says, one man's meat is another man's poison, morally as well as physically.
Precisely.
Oh, that, yes, true.
In other words, some men are honest and some are scoundrels.
Bosh! There are no scoundrels.
Indeed. Are there any good men?
No, not one. There are neither good men nor scoundrels. There are just children of one father, and the sooner they stop calling one another names, the better. You needn't talk to me. I know them. I've had scores of them through my hands. Scoundrels, criminals, infidels, philanthropists, missionaries, county councillors, all sorts. They're all just the same sort of sinner. And there's the same salvation waiting for them all.
Huh. May I ask, have you ever saved a maker of cannons?
No. Will you let me try?
Well, I will make a bargain with you. If I go see you tomorrow at your Salvation shelter, will you come the day after to see me in my cannon works?
Take care. It may end in your giving up the cannons for the sake of the Salvation Army.
Are you sure it will not end in you giving up the Salvation Army for the sake of my cannons?
I will take my chance of that.
And I will take the chance of the other. Where is your shelter?
In West Ham, at the sign of the cross. Ask anybody in Canning Town. Where are your works?
In Perivers, St. Andrews. At the sign of the sword. Ask anyone in Europe.
Hadn't I better play something?
Yes, give us onward Christian soldiers.
Well, that's a strong order to begin with, don't you know? Suppose I sing Thou art passing hence, my brother. It's much the same tune.
It's too melancholy. You get saved, Jolly, and you'll pass hence, my brother, without making such a fuss about it.
Really, Barbara, you go on as if religion were a pleasant subject. Do have some sense of propriety.
No, I do not find it an unpleasant subject, my dear. It is the only one that capable people really care for.
Well, if you are determined to have it, I insist on having it in proper and respectable way. Charles, ring for prayers.
Oh, I say!
I am afraid I must be going.
You cannot go now, Andrew. It would be most improper. Sit down. What will the servants think?
My dear, I have conscientious scruples. May I suggest a compromise? If Barbara will conduct a little service in the drawing room with Mr. Lomax as organist, I will attend it willingly. I'll even take part if a trombone can be procured.
Don't mock, Andrew.
You don't think I am mocking, my love, I hope?
No, of course not. And it wouldn't matter if you were. Half the army came to their first meeting for a lark. Come along, Dolly. Come, Charlie.
I will not be disobeyed by everybody. Adolphus, sit down. Charles, you may go. You're not fit for prayers. You cannot keep your countenance.
Well, I say.
But you, Adolphus, can behave yourself if you choose to. I insist on your staying.
My dear Lady Brett, there are things in the family prayer book that I could not bear to hear you say.
What things, pray?
Well, you would have to say before all the servants that we have done things we ought not to have done, and left things we ought to have done, and that there is no health in us. I cannot bear to hear you doing such an injustice, and Barbara such an injustice. As for myself, I flatly deny it. I have done my best. I shouldn't dare to marry Barbara. I couldn't look you in the face if it were true. So I must go to the drawing room.
Well, go. And remember this, Adolphus. I have a very strong suspicion that you went to the Salvation Army to worship Barbara and nothing else. And I quite appreciate the very clever way in which you systematically humbug me. I have found you out. Take care Barbara doesn't. That is all.
Don't tell on me.
Sarah, if you want to go, go. Anything's better than to sit there as if you wished you were 1,000 miles away.
Very well, Mama.
Mother, what's the matter?
Nothing. Foolishness. You can go with him too, if you like, and leave me with the servants.
Oh, you mustn't think that, Mother. I don't like him.
The others do. That is the injustice of a woman's lot. A woman has to bring up her children, and that means to restrain them, to deny them things they want, to set them tasks, to punish them when they do wrong, to do all the unpleasant things. And then the father, who has nothing to do but pet them and spoil them, comes in when all her work is done and steals their affection from her.
He has not stolen our affection from you. It is only curiosity.
I won't be consoled, Stephen. There's nothing the matter with me.
Where are you going, Mother?
To the drawing room, of course. Are you coming, Stephen?
No, certainly not.
The yard of the West Ham shelter of the Salvation Army is a cold place on a January morning.
You better alter your meal, sir.
No, you call that a meal? Good enough for you, perhaps. What's it to me, an intelligent working man?
Working man? What are you?
Painter.
Yes, I dare say.
Yes, you dare say. Or no. Every loafer that can't do nothing calls himself a painter. Well, I'm a real painter. Grainer, finisher, 38 bob a week when I can get it.
Then why don't you go and get it?
I'll tell you why. First, I'm intelligent. It's rotten cold here. Yes, intelligent about beyond the station of life, which is pleased the capitalists to call me, and they don't like a man that sees right through him. Second, an intelligent being needs a due share of happiness. So I'll drink something cruel when I get the chance. Third, I'll stand by me class and do as little as I can so as to leave off the job for me fellow workers. Fourth, I'm fly enough to know it's inside the law and outside the law. And I'll do as the capitalists do inside the law. Pinch what I can lay my hands on. In a proper state of society, I am sober, industrious, and honest. In Rome, so to speak, I'll do as the Romans do. What's the consequence? When trade is bad, it's rotten bad just now, and the employers has to sack half their men, they generally start on me.
What's your name?
Price. Brontier O'Brien Price. Usually called Snobby for short.
Snobby's a carpenter, ain't it? You said you was a painter.
Not that sort of snob, but the genteel sort. I'm too uppish owing to my intelligence. And my father being a chartist and a reading, thinking man, a stationer too. I'm none of your common hewers of wood and drawers of water, don't you forget it. And what's your name?
Rummy Mitchens, sir.
Well, do your health, Miss Mitchens.
Mrs. Mitchens.
What? Oh, Rummy. A respectable married woman, Rummy, getting rescued by the Salvation Army by pretending to be a bad un. Same old game.
What am I to do? I can't starve. Them Salvation lasses is you dear good girls. But the better you are, the worse they likes to think you were before they rescued you. Why shouldn't they have a bit of credit, poor loves? They've worn to rags by their work. And where would they get the money to rescue us if we was to let them on? We're no worse than other people. You know what ladies and gentlemen are.
Even swine. Wish I had their job, Rummy, all the same. So what does Rummy stand for? Pet name, perhaps?
Short for Romola.
For what?
Romola. Oh, it was out of a new book. Somebody me mother wanted me to grow up like.
Well, we're companions in misfortune, Rummy. Both of us got names that nobody can't pronounce. Consequently, I'm Snobby and you're Rummy because Bill and Sally wasn't good enough for her parents. Such is life.
Who saved you, Mr. Price? Was it Major Barbara?
Oh no, I can't be on my own. I'm going to be Brontier O'Brien Price, the converted painter. I'll know what they like. I'll tell them how I blasphemed and gambled and whooped me old mother.
Used to beat your mother?
Not likely. She used to beat me. Well, no matter. You come and listen to the converted painter, and you'll hear how she was a pious woman who taught me prayers at her knee, and how I used to come home drunk and drag out to bed and beat a snow-white ass, and then I lay into her with a poker.
That's what's so unfair to us women. Your confessions is just as big lies as ours. You don't tell what you really done no more than us. But you men can tell your lies right out of the meetings and be much for it. While the sort of confessions we has to make has to be whispered to one lady at a time. It ain't right, spite of all their piety.
Right. You suppose the army be allowed if it went and did right? Not much. It combs our hair and makes us good little blokes to be robbed and put upon. but I'll play the game as good as any of them. I'll see somebody struck by lightning, or hear a voice say, "Snobby Price, where will you spend eternity?" I'll have a time of it, I'll tell you.
You won't be let drink, though.
I'll take it out in Gospelin. And I don't want to drink if I can get fun any other way.
Come on, pluck up. I'll get you something to eat. You'll be all right then.
Oh, poor old man. Cheer up, brother. You'll find rest and peace and happiness here. Hurry up with the food, miss. He's fair done. Hey, buck up, Daddy. She's fetching you a thick slice of bread and treacle and a mug of scar blue.
Keep up your old art. Never say die.
I'm not an old man. I'm only 46. I'm as good as ever I was. The great patch got me out before I was 30. All it wants is 3 pence a hairdryer. It might have been turned on the street to stop for it. Oh, God. I've worked up to 10 to 12 hours a day since I was 13. I paid my way all through. Now am I to be thrown into the gutter? My job given to a young man who can do it no better than me because I'm black-haired and goes white at the first change? Oh.
No good jawing about it. You only had jumped up, jerked off spittle out on Caribou of an old working man. Who cares about you, eh? Make the thieving swan give you a meal. He stole many a one from you. Get a bit of your own back. There you are, brother. Ask a blessing and tuck that into you.
I never took anything before.
Come. The Lord sends it to you. He wasn't above taking bread from his friends, and why should you be? Besides, when we find you a job, you can pay us for it if you like.
Yes, that's true. I can pay you back. You tell me alone. Oh, Lord.
Oh, Rummy, are you more comfortable now?
God bless you, lovey. You fed my body and saved my soul, haven't you? Sit down and rest a bit. You must be ready to drop.
I've been going hard since this morning, but there's more work than we can do. I mustn't stop.
Try a prayer for just 2 minutes. You'll work all the better after.
Oh, isn't it wonderful how a few minutes of prayer revives you? I was quite lightheaded at 12 o'clock. I was so tired. But Major Barber just sent me to pray for 5 minutes, and I was able to go on as if I'd only just begun. Did you have a piece of bread?
Oh, yes, miss, but I've got the peace that I value more, and that's the peace that passeth all understanding.
Glory, hallelujah.
Oh, that makes me so happy when you say that. I feel wicked for loitering here. I must get to work again.
I know you. You're the one that took me girl away. You're the one that set her again me. Well, I'm going to have her out. Not that I care a curse for her or you, see. But I'll let her know, and I'll let you know. I'm going to give her a doing that'll teach her to cut away from me. Now, in with you, and tell her come out before I come in and kick her out. Tell her Bill Walker wants her. She'll know what that means. And if she keeps me waiting, it'll be worse. You stop the jaw back at me, and I'll start on you, do you hear? There's your way in. Then you go.
Hey, easy there, mate. She ain't done you no harm.
Who you calling mate? You gonna stand up for her? Put up your hands.
Oh, you great brute.
He instantly swings his left hand back against her face. She screams and reels back to the trough where she sits down, covering her bruised face with her hands and rocking and moaning with pain.
Oh, God forgive you. How could you strike an old woman like that?
Bill seizing her by the hair so violently that she also screams and tearing her away from the old woman.
You God forgive me again, and I'll God forgive you one in the jaw, and I'll stop you praying for a week. Have you anything to say again, eh?
No, matey. She ain't nothing to do with me.
Good for you. I'd put 2 meals in you and fight with 1 finger after, you starving cur. Now, are you going to fetch out Mog Abijam, or am I to knock out your face off and fetch her myself?
Oh, someone please go and tell Major Barbara.
She screams again as he wrenches her head down, and Price and Rummy flee into the shelter.
You want to go in and tell your major on me, do you?
Oh, please don't drag my hair. Let me go.
Oh, do you or don't you? Yes or no?
God, give me strength.
Bill striking her with his fist in the face.
Go and show her that and tell her if she wants one like it to come and interfere with me. Yeah, finish your mess and get out me way.
You take a liberty with me and I'll crack you over the face with me mug and cut your eye out. Ain't just satisfied, you young whelps like you, taking the bread out of the mouths of your elders and brought you up and slaved for you. Oh, but you must come shouting and cheating and bawling in here where the bread of charity is sickening in our stomachs.
What good are you, you old palsy mug? What good are you?
As good as you and better. I'll do a day's work again you, and if that young soaker your age, go and take me dropping oryxes where I worked for 10 years. They want young men there. They can't afford to keep on over 45. They're very sorry, yeah, they give you a character and happy to help you to get anything suited to your years. I'm sure a steady man like you won't be long out of a job. Well, let them try you. They'll find a dipper. Now, what do you know? Not as much as how to behave yourself. Laying your dirty fist across the mouth of a respectable woman.
Don't provoke me to lay across yours, yeah?
Oh, yes, you'd like that, don't you? You're like an old man to get when you're finished with the women. I ain't seen you hit a young one yet.
You lie, old soup kitchener, you. It was a young man here. Did I offer to hit him or did I not?
And was he starving or was he not? Was he a man or only a cross-eyed thief and a loafer? Will you hit me son-in-law's brother?
Who's he?
Roger Fairmile of Fairballs Palm. Him that won £20 off the Japanese wrestler at the music hall by standing out 17 minutes, 4 seconds to get him.
I'm no music hall wrestler. Can he box?
Oh, yes, and you can't.
Oh, what? I can't, can I? What's that you say?
Will you box, Roger Fairmile, if I put him on you? Say the word.
I'll stand up to any man alive if he was 10 Todger Fairmiles. But I don't set up to be a professional.
You boss! Slapping an old woman with the back of your hand. You hadn't even the sense to hit her where a magistrate couldn't see the mark on it. You silly young lump of conceit and ignorance. Hit her go with the jaw and only make her cry. If Todger Fairmile had done it, she wouldn't have got up inside of 10 minutes. No more than you would if he got on you. Yeah, I'd said about you yourself if I had a week's feeding in me instead of 2 months of starvation.
You lie. You had the bread and treacle in you that you come here to beg.
Oh, God, it's true. I know I'm only an old pauper on the scrap heap. But you'll come to it yourself, and then you'll know. Yeah, you'll come to it sooner than a teetotaler like me. Fill yourself with gin at this hour in the morning.
But I'm no gin drinker, you old liar. But when I want to give me girl a bloomin' good hiding, I like to have a bit of the devil in me, see? And here I am, talking to a rotten blighter like you instead of giving her what for. I'm going in there to fetch her out.
You're going to the station on a stretcher, more likely, and they'll take the gin and the devil out of you there. Well, you know, you'll mind what you are about, because the Major here is the Earl of Stevenage's granddaughter.
Go on.
You'll see.
Well, I ain't done nothing to her.
Suppose she said you did. Who'd believe you?
God, there's no justice in this country. To think what them people can do. I'm as good as her.
Well, tell her so. You just what a fool like you would do.
Good morning.
Good morning, miss.
Sit down, make yourself at home. Now then, since you've made friends with us, we want to know all about you, name and addresses and trades.
Peter Shirley, Peter, chucked out 2 months ago because I was too old.
Oh. It passed still. Why didn't you dye your hair?
Oh, I did. My age came out at a coroner's inquest on me daughter.
Oh, steady?
Teetotaler. Never out of a job before. Good worker. And sent to the knackers like an old horse.
No matter. If you did your part, God will do his.
My religion is no concern of anybody but myself.
No, secularist?
Did I offer to deny it?
Why should you? My own father's a secularist, I think. Our father, yours and mine, fulfills himself in many ways. And I dare say he knew what he was about when he made a secularist of you. So buck up, Peter. We can always find a job for a steady man like you. Oh, and what is your name?
What's that to you?
Oh, afraid to give his name. Any trade?
Who's afraid to give his name? If you want to bring a charge against me, bring it. My name's Bill Walker.
Bill Walker. Oh, I know. You're the man that Jenny Hill was praying for inside just now.
Who's Jenny Hill, and what calls she to pray for me?
I don't know. Perhaps it was you that cut her lip?
Yes, it was me that cut her lip. I'm not afraid of you.
How could you be, since you're not afraid of God? You're a brave man, Mr. Walker. It takes some pluck to do our work here, but none of us dare lift our hand against a girl like that for fear of her Father in heaven.
Oh, I want nothing of your canting jaw. I suppose you think I'll come here to beg from you like this damaged lot. Not me. I don't want your bread and scrape and catlap. I don't believe your God no more than you do yourself.
Oh, I beg your pardon for putting your name down, Mr. Walker. I didn't understand. I'll strike it out.
There! You let my name alone. Ain't it good enough to be in your book?
Well, you see, there's no use putting down your name unless I can do something for you, is there? What's your trade?
That's no concern of yours.
I'll put you down as the man who struck poor little Jenny Hill in the mouth.
See here, I've had enough of this.
What did you come to us for?
I come for me girl, see? I come to take her out of this and break her jaws for her.
You see, I was right about your trade. What is the girl's name?
Her name's Morg Abijam. That's what her name is.
Oh, she's gone to Canning Town, to our barracks there.
Is she? Then I'm going to Canning Town after her. Are you lying to me to get shut of me?
I don't want to get shut of you. I want to keep you here and save your soul. You'd better stay. You're all going to have a bad time today, Bill.
Who's going to give it to me? You, props?
Someone you don't believe in, but you'll be glad afterwards.
I'll go to Kennington to be out of the reach of your tongue. And if I don't find Morg there, I'll come back and do 2 years for you. So help me God if I don't.
It's no use, Bill. She's got another bloke.
What?
One of her own converts. He fell in love with her when he saw her with her soul saved and her face clean and her hair washed.
What'd you wash her for, the carroty slut? It's red.
It's quite lovely now because she wears a new look in her eyes with it. It's a pity you're too late. The new bloke has put your nose out of joint, Bill.
Oh, I'll put his note out of joint for him. Not that I care, curse for her, mind that. But I'll teach her to drop me as if I was dirt, and I'll teach him to meddle with me, Judy. What's his bleeding name?
Sergeant Todger Fairmile.
Oh, I'll go with him, miss. I want to see them two meet. I'll take him to the infirmary when it's over.
Is that him as you were speaking on?
That's him.
Him that wrestled in the music hall?
In a competition at the National Sports Club was worth nigh 100 a year to him. He's even gave him up now for religion now, so he's a bit fresh for all of the exercise he was accustomed to. He'll be glad to see you. Oh, come along.
What's his wife?
13-4.
Go and talk to him, Bill. He'll convert you.
He'll convert your head into a mashed potato.
Oh, I ain't afraid of him. I ain't afraid of anybody. But he can lick me. Oh, she's done me.
Ah, you ain't going. I thought not.
Jenny,
Yes, Major.
send Rummy Mitchens to clear out a way here.
I think she's afraid.
Nonsense. She must do as she's told.
Rummy, the Major says you must come.
Poor little Jenny. Are you tired? Does it hurt?
No, it's all right now. It was nothing.
It was as hard as he could hit, I expect. Poor Bill. You don't feel angry with him, do you?
Oh, no, indeed I don't, Major. Bless his poor little heart.
Oh. Now, Rummy, bustle. Take in those mugs and plates to be washed and throw the crumbs about for the birds.
There ain't any crumbs. This ain't a time to waste good bread on the birds.
Gentleman come to see the shelter, Major. Says he's your father.
Oh, all right. Coming.
I'd have the law of you, you flat-eared, pig-nosed pot-walloper, if she'd let me. You're no gentleman to hit a lady in the face.
Oh, yeah, in with you. Don't get yourself in any more trouble by talking.
I ain't had the pleasure of being introduced to you, as I can remember.
Don't you talk to me, yeah? You leave me alone, or I'll do you a mischief. I'm not dirting your feet anyway.
Don't you be afeard. He ain't such prime company you need to expect to be sought after.
There you are, Mr. Shirley. This is my father. I told you he was a secularist, didn't I? Perhaps you'll be able to comfort one another.
A secularist? Not in the least in the world. On the contrary, a confirmed mystic.
Sorry, I'm sure. By the way, Papa, what is your religion, in case I have to introduce you again?
My religion? Yep. Well, my dear, I'm a millionaire. That is my religion.
Oh, then I'm afraid you and Mr. Shirley won't be able to comfort one another after all. You're not a millionaire, are you, Peter?
No, I'm proud of it.
Poverty, my friend, is not something to be proud of.
Who made your millions for you? Me and my like. And what's kept us poor? Keeping you rich. Oh, now your conscience will for all your income.
I wouldn't have your income, not for all your conscience, Mr. Shirley.
You wouldn't think he was my father, would you, Peter? Will you go into the shelter and lend the lasses a hand for a while? We're worked off our feet.
Yes, I'm in their debt for a meal, ain't I?
Oh, not because you're in their debt, but for love of them, Peter. For love of them. There, don't stare at me. In with you, and get that conscience of yours a holiday.
It's a pity that you was trained, you pity you never was trained to use your reason, miss. You know, you'd have made a very taking lecture on secularism.
Go, never mind me, my dear. Go about your work and let me watch for a while.
All right.
For instance, what's the matter with that outpatient over there?
Oh, we shall cure him in no time. Just watch. It would be nice to just stomp on Mog Habajam's face, wouldn't it, Bill?
It's a lie. I never said so. Who told you what was in my mind?
Only your new friend.
What new friend?
The devil, Bill. When he gets round people, they get miserable just like you.
I ain't miserable.
Well, if you're happy, why don't you look happy as we do?
I'm happy enough, I tell you. Why don't you leave me alone? What have I done to you? I ain't smashed your face, have I?
It's not me that's getting at you, Bill.
Who else is it?
Somebody that doesn't intend you to smash women's faces, I suppose. Somebody or something that wants to make a man of you.
Make a man of me? Ain't I a man, eh? Ain't I a man? Who says I'm not a man?
There's a man in you somewhere, I suppose. But why did he let you hit poor little Jenny Hill? That wasn't very manly of him, was it?
Have done with it, I tell you. Chalk it. I'm sick of your Jenny ill in a silly little face.
Then why do you keep on thinking about it? Why does it keep coming up against you in your mind? You're not getting converted, are you?
Not me. Not likely. Not off.
That's right, Bill. Hold out against it. Put out your strength. Don't let's get you cheap. Todger Fairmile said he wrestled for 3 nights against his salvation harder than he ever wrestled with that Japanese bloke at the music hall. He gave in to the Japanese bloke when his arm was going to break. But he didn't give in to his salvation until his heart was going to break. Perhaps you'll escape that. You haven't any heart, have you?
What do you mean? Why ain't I got a heart the same as anybody else?
A man with a heart wouldn't have bashed poor little Jenny's face, would he?
Oh, will you leave me alone? Have I ever offered to meddle with you that you come nogging and provoking me like this?
It's your soul that's hurting you, Bill, and not me. We've been through it all ourselves. Come with us, Bill, to brave manhood on earth and eternal glory in heaven. Come! Oh, there you are, Dolly. Let me introduce a new friend of mine, Mr. Bill Walker. This is my bloke, Bill, Mr. Cusins.
Going to marry him?
Yes.
God help him. God help him.
Why? Do you think he won't be happy with me?
I've only had to stand it for a morning. He'll have to stand it for a lifetime.
That is a frightful reflection, Mr. Walker, but I can't tear myself away from her.
Well, I can. Yeah. Do you hear where I'm going and what I'm going to do?
Yes. You're going to heaven, and you're coming back here before the week's out to tell me so.
You lie. I'm going to Kennington to spit in Todger Fairmile's eye. I bashed Jenny Hill's face, and now I'll get me own face bashed and come back and show it to her. Oh, he'll hit me harder than I hit her. That'll make us square. Is that fair, or is it not? You're a gentleman. You ought to know.
2 black eyes won't make 1 white one, Bill.
I didn't ask you. Can't you ever keep your mouth shut? I asked the gentleman.
Yes, I think you're right, Mr. Walker. Yes, I should do it. It's curious. It's exactly what an ancient Greek would have done.
But what good will it do?
Well, it will give Mr. Fairmile some exercise. Then it will satisfy Mr. Walker's soul.
Right! There ain't no such thing as a soul. I can tell you whether I have a soul or not. I never seen it.
I've seen it, hurting you when you went against it.
If you was me girl and took the words out of me mouth like that, I'd give you something to feel hurting, so I would. You take my tip, mate. Stop a jaw, or you'll die afore your time. Wore out, that's what you'll be. Wore out.
I wonder.
Dolly.
Yes, my dear. It's very wearing to be in love with you. If it lasts, I quite think I shall die young.
Should you mind?
Not at all.
Oh, it's all right, Papa. We've not forgotten you. Dolly, explain the place to Papa. I haven't time.
So I fancy you guessed something of what's on my mind, Mr. Cusins. Exactly so. But suppose Barbara finds you out.
You know, I do not admit that I am imposing on Barbara. I am quite genuinely interested in the views of the Salvation Army. The fact is, I am a collector of religions. And the curious thing is that I find I can believe them all. By the way, have you any religion?
Yes.
Anything out of the common?
Only that there are 2 things necessary for salvation.
Ah, the church catechism. Charles Lomax also belongs to the established church.
The 2 things are...
Baptism.
No. Money and gunpowder.
That is the general opinion of our governing classes. The novelty is in hearing any man confess it.
Just so.
Excuse me, is there any place in your religion for honor, justice, truth, love, mercy, and so forth?
Yes, they are the graces and luxuries of a rich, strong, and safe life.
Suppose that one is forced to choose between them and money or gunpowder.
Choose money and gunpowder, for without enough of both, you cannot afford the others.
That is your religion?
Yes.
Barbara won't stand that. You'll have to choose between your religion and Barbara.
Well, so will you, my friend. She'll find out that your drum of yours is hollow.
Father Undershaft, you are mistaken. I am a sincere Salvationist. You do not understand the Salvation Army. It is the army of joy, of love, of courage. It has banished the fear and remorse and despair of the old hell-ridden evangelical sects. It marches to fight the devil with trumpet and drum, with music and dancing, with banner and palm. It becomes a sally forth from heaven by happy garrison. It picks the waster out of the public house and makes a man of him. It finds a worm wriggling in the back kitchen, and lo, a woman. Men and women of rank, too, sons and daughters of the highest. It takes the poor professor of Greek, the most artificial and self-suppressed of humans, from his meal of roots and lets loose the rhapsodist in him, reveals the true worshiper of Dionysus to him, sends him down the public street drumming ditty-rams.
Oh, you'll wake the shelter.
Oh, they are accustomed to these sudden bursts of ecstasy of piety. However, if the drum worries you.
Thank you.
You remember what Euripides says about money and gunpowder?
No.
And money and guns may outpass his brother, and men and their millions float and flow and seethe with a million hopes as leaven, and they win their will, or they miss their will, and their hopes are dead, or pine for still, that to live is happy has found his heaven.
I think, my friend, that if you wish to know, as long as the long days go, that to live is happy, you must first acquire money enough for a decent life and power enough to be your own master.
You are damnably discouraging. The law that abides and changes not, ages long, the eternal and nature-born, these things be strong. What else is wisdom? What of man's endeavor, or God's high grace, so lovely and so great, to stand from fear set free, to breathe and wait, to hold a hand uplifted over fate, that shall not Barbara be loved forever?
Euripides mentions Barbara, does he?
It is a fair translation. The word means loveliness.
Ah. May I ask, as Barbara's father, how much a year she is to be loved forever on?
As Barbara's father, that is more your affair than mine. I can feed her by teaching Greek, that is all.
Do you consider it a good match for her?
Mr. Undershaft, I am in many ways a weak, timid, ineffectual person, and my health is far from satisfactory. But whenever I feel that I must have anything, I get it, sooner or later. I feel that way about Barbara. I don't like marriage. I feel intensely afraid of it. And I don't know what I shall do with Barbara or what she will do with me. But I feel that I and no one else must marry her. Please regard that as settled. Not that I wish to be arbitrary, but why should I waste your time discussing what is inevitable?
You mean that you will stick at nothing, not even the conversion of the Salvation Army to the worship of Dionysus?
The business of the Salvation Army is to save, not to wrangle about the name of the Pathfinder, Dionysus or another. What does it matter?
Professor Cusins, you are a young man after my own heart.
Mr. Undershaft, you are, as far as I am able to gather, a most infernal old rascal. But you appeal very strongly to my ironic sense of humor.
And now, to business.
Pardon me, we were discussing religion. Why go back to such an uninteresting and unimportant topic as business?
Religion is our business at present because it is through religion alone that we can win Barbara.
Have you, too, fallen in love with Barbara?
Yes, with a father's love.
A father's love for a grown-up daughter is the most dangerous of all infatuations. I apologize for mentioning my own pale, coy, mistrustful fancy in the same breath with it.
Keep to the point. We will have to win her, and we are neither of us Methodists.
No, that doesn't matter. The power Barbara wields here, the power that wields Barbara herself is not Calvinism, not Presbyterianism, not Methodism.
Not Greek paganism either, eh?
I admit that Barbara is quite original in her religion.
Aha! Barbara Undershaft would be. Her inspiration comes from within herself.
How do you suppose it got there?
It is the Undershaft inheritance. I shall hand on my torch to my daughter, and she shall make my converts and preach my gospel.
What? Money and gunpowder?
Yes, money and gunpowder. Freedom and power. Command of life and command of death.
This is extremely interesting, Mr. Undershaft. Of course, you know that you are mad.
And you?
Oh, mad as a hatter. You are welcome to my secret, since I have discovered yours. But I am astonished. Can a madman make cannons?
Would anyone else than a madman make them? And now, question for question. Can a sane man translate Euripides?
No.
Can a sane woman make a man of a waster and a woman of a worm?
Father Colossus, mammoth millionaire.
Are there 2 mad people or 3 in this salvation shelter today?
I mean, Barbara is as mad as we are.
Oh, pooh. Professor, let us call things by their proper names. I am a millionaire, you are a poet, and Barbara is a savior of souls. What have we 3 to do with the common mob of slaves and idolaters?
Take care. Barbara is in love with the common people. So am I. Have you never felt the romance of that love?
Have you ever been in love with poverty, like St. Francis? Have you ever been in love with dirt, like St. Simeon? Have you ever been in love with disease and suffering, like our nurses and philanthropists? Such passions are not virtues, but the most unnatural of all vices. The love of the common people may please an earl's granddaughter and a university professor, but I have been a common man and a poor man. It has no romance for me. Leave it to the poor to pretend that poverty is a blessing. Leave it to the coward to make a religion of his cowardice by preaching humility. We know better than that. We 3 must stand together above the common people. How else can we help their children climb up beside us? Barbara must belong to us, not the Salvation Army.
Well, I can only say that if you think you will get her away from the Salvation Army by talking to her as you've been talking to me, you don't know Barbara.
My friend, I never ask for what I can buy.
I understand you to imply that you can buy Barbara?
Oh, no. But I can buy the Salvation Army.
Quite impossible.
You shall see. All religious organizations exist by selling themselves to the rich.
Not the army. This is the Church of the Poor.
And all the more reason for buying it.
Don't think you quite know what the army does for the poor?
Oh, yes, I do. It draws their teeth, and that is enough for me. As a man of business...
Nonsense. It makes them sober.
I prefer sober workmen. Their profits are larger.
Honest.
Honest workmen are the most economical.
Attached to their homes.
So much the better. They will put up with anything sooner than change their shop.
Happy.
An invaluable safeguard against the revolution.
Unselfish.
Indifferent to their own interests, which suits me exactly.
With their thoughts on heavenly things.
And not on trade unionism or socialism. Excellent.
Really are an infernal old rascal.
And this is an honest man.
Yes. What have I got by it?
Oh, your employers must have gotten a good deal from it, from first to last.
Oh, we've just had a splendid experience meeting at the other gate in Cripps Lane. I've hardly ever seen them so much moved as they were by your confession, Mr. Price.
I could almost be glad of me past wickedness if I could believe it would help to keep others straight.
Oh, Snobby, if you had given your poor mother just one more kick, we should have gotten the whole 5 shillings.
4 and 2pence, Major.
Well, if she heard you say that, miss, she'd be sorry I didn't. But I'm glad. Oh, what a joy it will be to her when she hears I'm saved.
Well, shall I contribute the odd 2pence, Barbara? The millionaire's mite, eh?
How did you make that 2pence?
As usual, by selling cannons, torpedoes, submarines, and my new patent Grand Duke hand grenade.
Put it back in your pocket. You can't buy your salvation here for 2pence. You must work it out.
Is 2pence not enough? I can afford a little more if you press me.
2 millions would not be enough. There is bad blood on your hands, and nothing but good blood can cleanse them. Money is no use. Take it away. Dolly, you must write another letter for me to the papers. Oh, yes, I know you don't like it, but it must be done. The starvation this winter is beating us. Everybody is unemployed. The General says we must close this shelter if we can't get more money. I force the collections at the meetings until I am ashamed, don't I, Snobby?
It's a fair treat to see you working, miss. The way you got them up from 3 and 6 to 4 and 10 with that M, penny by penny and verse by verse, it was a caution. Not a cheap jack on mile end waist could touch you at it.
Yes, but I wish we could do without it. I'm getting at last to think more of the collection than of the people's souls. And what are those hatfuls of pence and halfpence? We want thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I want to convert people, not to be always begging for the army in a way I'd sooner die than beg for myself.
Genuine unselfishness is capable of anything, my dear.
Yes, isn't it?
Mephistopheles, Machiavelli.
How are we to feed them? I can't talk religion to a man with bodily hunger in his eyes. It's frightful.
Major, dear.
No, don't comfort me. It will be all right. We shall get the money.
How?
By praying for it, of course. Mrs. Baines says she prayed for it last night, and she has never prayed for it in vain, never once.
Oh, by the way, Dad, Mrs. Baines has come to march with us to our big meeting this afternoon, and she is very anxious to meet you for some reason or other. Perhaps she'll convert you.
Yeah, I shall be delighted, my dear.
Major, here's that man back again.
What man?
The man that hit me. Oh, I hope he's coming back to join us.
Oh, hello, Bill. Back already?
Been talking ever since, have you?
Pretty nearly. Well, has Todger paid you out for poor Jenny Straw?
No, he ain't.
I thought your jacket looked a bit snowy.
So it is snowy. You want to know where the snow come from, don't you?
Yes.
Well, it come off the ground at Parkins's corner in Kennington. It got rubbed off from my shoulders, see?
Pity you didn't rub some off with your knees, Bill. That would have done you a lot of good.
I was saving another man's knees at the time. He was kneeling on me head, so he was.
Who was kneeling on your head?
Dodger was. He was praying for me, praying comfortable with me as a carpet. So was Morg. So was the old bloomin' meeting. Morg, she says, "Oh Lord, break his stubborn spirit, but don't hurt his dear heart." That's what she said. Don't hurt his dear heart. And a bloke, 13 stone 4, kneeling with all his weight on me. Funny, ain't it?
Oh no, we're so sorry, Mr. Walker.
Nonsense, of course it's funny. Served you right, Bill. You must have done something to him first.
I did what I said I'd do. I spit in his eye. He looks up at the sky and says, "Oh, that I should be found worthy to be spit upon for the gospel's sake," he says. And Morg says, "Glory, hallelujah." And then he called me brother and donned me as if I was a kid and he was my mother, washed me a Saturday night. I had just no show with him at all. Off the street play. The t'other half laughed fit to split themselves. There. Are you satisfied now?
Wish I'd been there, Bill.
Yes, you'd got an extra bit of talk on me, wouldn't you?
I'm so sorry, Mr. Walker.
Oh, don't you go being sorry for me. You've no call. Listen here, I broke your jaw.
No, it didn't hurt me. Indeed, it didn't. Except for a moment. It was only that I was frightened.
But I don't want to be forgiven by you or by anybody. What I did, I'll pay for. I tried to get me own jaw broke to satisfy you.
Oh, no.
I'll tell you I did. Can't you listen to what's being told you? All I got was being made a sight of in public for me pains. Well, if I can't satisfy you one way, I can another. Listen here. I had 2 quid saved again the frost, and I have a pound of it left. A mate of mine last week had words with his Judy he's going to marry. He gave her what for, and he's been fined 15 bob. He had a right to it, you know, because they was going to be married. But I had no right to hit you, so put another 5 bob on it and call it a pound's worth. Here's your money, take it, and have no more your forgiving and praying and your major jawing me. Let what I done be done and paid for. I'll let there be an end on it.
Oh, I couldn't take it, Mr. Walker. But if you would give a shilling or two to poor Rummy Mitchens, you really did hurt her, and she's old.
Not likely. I'd give her another soon as look at her. Better have the law on me if she's threatened. She ain't forgiving me, not much. What I done to her is not on me mind. What she might call a conscience, no more than sticking a pig. It's this Christian game of yours that I won't have played again me. This bloomin' forgiving and noggin and jawing that makes a man that saw that his own life's a burden to him. I won't have it, I tell you. So take your money and stop throwing your silly bashing face up again me.
Major, may I take a little of it for the army?
No, the army is not to be bought. We want your soul, Bill, and we'll take nothing less.
I know it ain't enough. Me and a few shillings is not good enough for you. You're an earl's granddaughter, you are. Nothing less than £100 for you.
Come, Barbara, you could do a great deal of good with £100. If you'll set this gentleman's mind at ease by taking his pound, I'll put up the other 99.
Oh, you're too extravagant, Papa. Bill offers 20 pieces of silver. All you need, Arthur, is the other 10. That will make the standard price to buy anybody who's for sale. I'm not, and the army's not. You'll never have another quiet moment, Bill, until you come round to us. You can't stand out against your salvation.
I can't stand it again, music-hall wrestlers and artful-tongued women. I've offered to pay, and I can do no more. Take it or leave it. There it is.
Oh, Mrs. Baines, this is my father, Mrs. Baines. Try what you can do with him. He won't listen to me because he remembers what a fool I was when I was a baby.
Have you been shown over the shelter, Mr. Undershaft? You know the work we've been doing, of course.
Yeah, the whole nation knows it, Mrs. Baines.
No, sir, the whole nation does not know it, or we would not be crippled as we are for want of money to carry on our work through the length and breadth of the land. Let me tell you that there have been rioting this winter in London but for us.
You really think so?
Oh, I know it. I remember 1886, when you rich gentlemen hardened your hearts against the cry of the poor. They broke the windows of your clubs in Pall Mall.
And the Mansion House Fund went up next day from £30,000 to £79,000. Oh, yes, I remember that well.
Won't you help me to get at the people? They won't break windows then. Come here, Price. Let me show you to this gentleman. Do you remember the window breaking?
Your father thought it was the revolution, Mum.
Would you break windows now?
Oh, no, Mum. The windows of heaven have been opened up to me. I know that the rich man is a sinner like myself.
Snobby Price.
What is it?
Your mother's asking out for you at the other gate in Crips's Lane. She heard about your confession.
Go, Mr. Price, and pray with her.
You can go through the shelter, Snobby.
I couldn't face her now, ma'am, with all the weight of me sins fresh on me. Tell her she'll find her son at home, waiting for her in prayer.
You see how we take the anger and the bitterness against you out of their hearts, Mr. Undershaft?
Well, it certainly is most convenient and gratifying to all large employers of labor, Mrs. Baines.
Barbara, Jenny, good news, most wonderful news. My prayers have been answered. I told you they would, Jenny, didn't I?
Yes, yes.
Oh, have we got money enough to keep the shelter open?
Well, I hope we shall have enough to keep all the shelters open. Lord Saxmanham has promised us £5,000.
Hooray!
Glory!
If what?
If 5 other gentlemen will give 1,000 each to make it up to 10,000.
Who is Lord Saxmundham? I've never heard of him.
A new creation, my dear. You've heard of Sir Horace Bodger?
Bodger? Do you mean the distiller? Bodger's whiskey?
That is the man. He's one of the greatest of our public benefactors. He restored the cathedral at Hackington, and then they made him a baronet for that, and then he gave $500,000 of his funds for his party, and they made a baron of him for that.
Now, what will they give him for the other 5,000?
No, there's nothing left to give him, so 5,000, I should think, is to save his soul.
Heaven grant it may. Mr. Undershaft, have you some very rich friends? Can't you help us toward the other 5,000? We're going to hold a great meeting this afternoon at the Assembly Hall in Mile End Road. If I could only announce that one gentleman had come forward to support Lord Saxmundham, others would follow. Do you know somebody? Couldn't you? Wouldn't you? Oh, think of those poor people, Mr. Undershaft. Think of how much it means to them and how little to a great man like you.
Well, Mrs. Baines, you are irresistible. I cannot disappoint you, and I can't deny myself the satisfaction of making Bodger pay up. You shall have your £5,000.
Thank God!
You don't thank me.
Oh, sir, don't try to be cynical. Don't be ashamed of being a good man. The Lord will bless you abundantly, and our prayers will be like a strong fortification round you all the days of your life. Will you let me have the check to show at the meeting? Would you? Jenny, go and fetch a pen and ink.
Oh, no, don't disturb Miss Hill. I have a fountain pen.
What price salvation now?
Stop. Mrs. Baines, are you really going to take this money?
Why not, dear?
Why not? Do you know who my father is? Have you forgotten that Lord Saxmundham is Bodger, the whiskey man? Do you remember how he implored the county council to stop him from writing Bodger's whiskey in letters of fire against the sky so the poor drink-ruined creatures on the embankment could not wake up from their snatches of sleep without being reminded of their deadly thirst by that wicked sky sign? Do you know that the worst thing I've had to fight here is not the devil, but Bodger with his whiskey, his distilleries, and his tide houses? Are you going to make our shelter another tide house for him and ask me to keep it?
Rotten drunken whiskey it is, too.
Dear Barbara, Lord Saxmundham has a soul to be saved like any of us. If heaven has found the way to make good use of his money, are we to set ourselves up against the answer to our prayers?
I know he has a soul to be saved. Let him come down here and I'll do my best to help him to his salvation. But he wants to send his check down to buy us and go on being as wicked as ever.
My dear Barbara, alcohol is a very necessary article. It heals the sick.
It does nothing of the sort.
Well, it assists the doctor. That is perhaps a less questionable way of putting it. It makes life bearable to millions of people who could not endure their existence if they were quite sober, and it enables Parliament to do things at 11 at night that no sane man would attempt to do at 11 in the morning. Is it Bodger's fault that his inestimable gift is deplorably abused by less than 1% of the poor?
Barbara, will there be less drinking or more if all these poor souls we're saving come tomorrow and the doors of our shelter shut in their faces? Lord Saxmundham gives us the money to stop drinking, to take his own business from him.
Pure self-sacrifice to Bodger's part, clearly. Bless dear Bodger.
I also, Mrs. Baines, may claim a little disinterestedness. Think of my business. Think of the widows and orphans, the men and lads torn to pieces with shrapnel and poisoned by lyddite, the oceans of blood and not one drop of which is shed in a really just cause, the ravaged crops, the peaceful peasants forced, women and men, to till their fields under the fire of opposing armies on pain of starvation, the bad blood of the fierce little cowards at home who egg on the others to fight for the gratification of their national vanity. All this makes money for me. I'm never richer, never busier than when the papers are full of it. Well, it is your work to preach peace on earth and goodwill toward men. Every convert that you make is a vote against war. Yet, I give you this money to help you hasten my own commercial ruin.
Millennium will be inaugurated by the unselfishness of Undershaft and Bodger. Oh, be joyful!
The longer I live, the more proof I see that there's an infinite goodness that turns everything to the work of salvation sooner or later. Who would have thought that any good could have come out of war and drink, and yet their profits are brought today to the feet of salvation to do its blessed work.
Oh dear, how blessed! How glorious it all is!
Let us seize this unspeakable moment. Let us march to the great meeting at once. Excuse me, just an instant.
Mr. Undershaft, have you ever seen 1,000 people fall on their knees with one impulse and pray? Come with us to the meeting. Barbara shall tell them that the army is saved and saved through you.
You shall carry the flag down the first street, Mrs. Baines. Mr. Undershaft is a gifted trombonist. He shall intone an Olympian diapason to the West Ham Salvation March. Blow, Machiavelli, blow.
The trumpet of Zion! I will do my best. I could vamp a bass if I knew the tune.
It is a wedding chorus from one of Donizetti's operas, but we have converted it. We convert everything to good here, including Bodger. You remember the chorus? For the immense rejoicing, immenso jubileo, rum-ta-tum-ta-tum-ta-tum-ta-tum-ta-tum.
Dolly, you are breaking my heart.
What is a broken heart more or less here? Dionysus Undershaft has descended. I am possessed.
Come, Barbara. I must have my dear Major to carry the flag with me.
Yes, Major, darling.
I can't come.
Now come.
Barbara, do you think I'm wrong to take the money?
No, God help you, dear. You must. You are saving the army. Go, and may you have a great meeting.
But aren't you coming?
No.
Barbara, what are you doing?
Why are you taking your badge off? You can't be going to leave us, Major.
Father, come here.
My dear,
Don't be frightened.
I...
There. It's not much for £5,000, is it?
Barbara, if you won't come and pray with us, promise me you will pray for us.
I can't pray now. Perhaps I shall never pray again.
Barbara.
Yeah?
I can't bear any more. Quick, march!
Off we go. Play up there. Immenso jubileo.
I must go, dear. You're overworked, and you'll be all right tomorrow. We'll never lose you. Now, Jenny, step out with the old flag. Fire, blood, and fire.
Glory, hallelujah!
My ducats and my daughter.
Money and gunpowder.
Drunkenness and murder. My God, it hast thou forsaken me.
What price salvation now?
Don't you hit her when she's down?
She hit me when I was down. Why shouldn't I get me own back?
I didn't take your money, Bill.
No, it weren't good enough for you. Hello, if you ain't took it, someone else has. Where's it go? Blame me if Jenny Hill didn't take it after all.
You lie, you dirty blackguard. Snobby Price pinched it off the drum when he took off his cap. I was up there all the time and see him do it.
What? Stole my money? Why didn't you call thief on him, you silly old mucker, you?
To serve you out for hitting me across the face. It cost you a pound, that has. I'm done with you. I'm even with you. I've had it with you.
Tell us, old man, what o'clock this morning was it when him as they call Snobby Price was sighted?
About 12:30, Bill. And he pinched your pound at 1:45. I know. Well, you can't afford to lose it. I'll send it to you.
Not if I was to starve for it. I ain't to be bought.
Ain't you? You'd sell your soul to the devil for a pint of beer. And there ain't no devil to make the offer.
So I would, mate, and often have cheerful. But she can't buy me. You wanted my soul, didn't you? Well, you ain't got it.
I nearly got it, Bill. But we've sold it back to you for £10,000.
And dear the money.
No, Peter. It was worth more than money.
It's no good. You can't get round me now. I don't believe in it, and I've seen today that I was right. So long, old Soup Kitchener. Ta-ta, Major Earl's granddaughter. What price salvation now? Snobby price!
Goodbye, Bill.
Get out. But that's all right, you know. Nothing personal, no malice. So long, Judy.
No malice. So long, Bill.
You make too much of him, miss, in your innocence.
Peter, I'm like you now. Cleaned out and lost my job.
Oh, you've your youth and hope. That's two better than me. Oh, there's hope for you.
I'll get you a job, Peter. The youth will have to be enough for me. Oh, I have just enough for 2 teas at Lockhart's, a route and doss for you, and my tram and bus home. No, don't be proud, Peter. It's sharing between friends. And promise me you'll talk to me and not let me cry.
Well, I'm not accustomed to talking to the likes of you.
Yes, you must. Talk to me. Tell me about Tom Paine's books and Bradwell's lectures. Come along.
Oh, you know, if you'd only read Tom Paine in the proper spirit, miss.
Act 3. Next day after lunch, Lady Britomart is writing in the library at Wilton Crescent. You've left off your uniform.
Charles.
I'm awfully sorry, Barbara. You know I helped you all I could with the concerta and so forth. Still, I have never shut my eyes to the fact there's a certain amount of tosh about the Salvation Army. And now the claims of the Church of England.
That's enough, Charles. Speak of something suited to your mental capacity.
But surely the Church of England is suited to all our capacities.
Thank you for your sympathy, Charlie. Now, go and spoon with Sarah.
How is my onus today?
I wish you wouldn't tell Charlie to do things, Barbara. He always comes straight and does them. Charlie, we're going to the works at Percival St. Andrews this afternoon.
What works?
The cannon works.
What? Your governor's shop?
Yes.
Oh, I say.
I expected you this morning, Dolly. Didn't you guess that?
I'm sorry. I have only just breakfasted.
But we've just finished lunch.
Have you had one of your bad nights?
No. I had a rather good night. In fact, one of the most remarkable nights I've ever passed.
The meeting?
No, after the meeting.
You should have gone to bed after the meeting. What were you doing?
Drinking?
Adolphus!
Oh, I say.
What were you drinking, may I ask?
A most devilish kind of Spanish Burgundy. Warranted free from any added alcohol, a temperance Burgundy, in fact. Its richness in natural alcohol made any addition superfluous.
Are you joking, Dolly?
No, I have been making a night of it with the nominal head of this household. That is all.
Andrew made you drunk.
No, he only provided the wine. I think it was Dionysus that made me drunk. I told you I was possessed.
You're not sober yet. Go home to bed at once.
I have never before ventured to reproach you, Lady Brit, but how could you marry the Prince of Darkness?
It was much more excusable to marry him than to get drunk with him. That is a new accomplishment of Andrew's, by the way. He usedn't to drink.
He doesn't now. He only sat there and completed the wreck of my moral basis, the rout of my convictions, the purchase of my soul. He cares for you, Barbara. That is what makes him so dangerous to me.
That has nothing to do with it, Dolly. There are larger loves and diviner dreams than the fireside ones. You know that, don't you?
Yes, that is our understanding. I know it. I hold to it. Unless he can win me on that holier ground, he may amuse me for a while, but he can go no deeper. He can get no deeper hold, stronger as he is.
Keep to that, and the end will be all right. Now, tell me what happened at the meeting.
It was an amazing meeting. Mrs. Baines almost died of emotion. Jenny Hill went stark mad with hysteria. The Prince of Darkness played his trombone like a madman. His brass roarings were like the laughter of the damned. 117 conversions took place then and there. They prayed with the most touching sincerity and gratitude for Bodger and the most anonymous donor of £5,000. Father would not let his name be given.
That was rather fine of the old man, you know. Most chaps would wonder the advertisement.
He said that all the charitable organizations would be down on him like kites on a battlefield if he gave his name.
That's Andrew all over. He never does a proper thing without giving an improper reason for it.
He convinced me that all my life I have been doing improper things for proper reasons.
Adolphus, now that Barbara has left the Salvation Army, you had better leave it too. I will not have you playing that drum in the streets.
Your orders are already obeyed, Lady Brent.
Dolly, were you ever really in earnest about it? Would you have joined if you had never seen me?
Well, possibly. As a collector of religions.
Not as a drummer, though, you know. You're a very clear-headed, brainy chap, Charlie. And it must have been apparent to you that there's a certain amount of tosh about.
Charles, if you must drivel, drivel like a grown-up man and not like a schoolboy.
Well, drivel is drivel, don't you know, whatever a man's age.
In good society in England, Charles, men drivel at all ages by repeating silly formulas with an air of wisdom. Schoolboys make their own formulas out of slang like you. When they reach your age and get political private secretaryships and things of that sort, they drop slang and get their formulas out of the Spectator or the Times. You had better confine yourself to the Times. You'll find that there is a certain amount of tosh about the Times, but at least its language is reputable.
You are so awfully strong-minded, Lady Brit.
Rubbish. Morrison, what is it?
If you please, my lady, Mr. Undershaft has drove up to the door.
Well, let him in. Morrison, what's the matter with you?
Shall I announce him, my lady, or is he at home here, so to speak, my lady?
Announce him.
Thank you, my lady. You won't mind my asking, I hope. The occasion is, in a manner of speaking, new to me.
Quite right. Go and let him in. Children, go and get ready. Charles, go and tell Stephen to come down here in 5 minutes. You'll find him in the drawing room. Adolphus, tell them to send round the carriage in about 15 minutes.
Ah, we're alone. How fortunate.
Don't be sentimental, Andrew. Sit down. Sarah must have £800 a year until Charles Lomax comes into his property. Barbara will need more, and need it permanently, because Adolphus hasn't any property.
Yes, my dear, I will see to it. Anything else? For yourself, for instance?
I want to talk to you about Stephen.
Oh, Don't, my dear. Stephen doesn't interest me.
He does interest me. He is our son.
Do you really think so? I mean, he's introduced us to bring him into the world, but he chose his parents very incongruously, I think. I see nothing of myself in him, and even less of you.
Andrew, Stephen is an excellent son and a most steady, capable, high-minded young man. You are simply trying to find an excuse for disinheriting him.
My dear Biddy, the Undershaft tradition disinherits him. It would be dishonest of me to leave the cannon foundry to my son.
It would be most unnatural and improper of you to leave it to anyone else. Andrew, do you suppose the wicked and immoral tradition can be kept up forever? Do you pretend that Stephen could not carry on the foundry just as well as the other sons of the big business houses?
Yes, he could learn the office routine without understanding the business, like all the other sons, and the firm would go on by its own momentum until the real Undershaft, probably an Italian or a German, would invent a new method and cut him out.
There is nothing that any Italian or German could do that Stephen could not do. And Stephen, at least, has breeding.
The son of a foundling? Nonsense.
My son, Andrew. And even you may have good blood in your veins for all you know.
No, true. Probably I have. That's another argument in favor of a foundling.
Andrew, don't be aggravating and don't be wicked. At present, you are both.
This conversation is part of the Undershaft tradition, Biddy. Every Undershaft's wife has treated him to it ever since this house was founded. It's more waste of breath. If the tradition be ever broken, it will be for an abler man than Stephen.
Then go away.
Go away?
Yes, go away. If you will do nothing for Stephen, you're not wanted here. Go to your foundling, whoever he is, and look after him.
The fact is, Biddy, that...
Don't call me Biddy. I don't call you Andy.
Well, I will not call my wife Britomart. It's not good sense. Seriously, my love, the Undershaft tradition has landed me in a difficulty. I am getting on in years, and my partner Lazarus has at last made a stand and insisted that the succession must be settled one way or another. And of course, he's quite right. You see, I haven't found a fit successor yet.
There is Stephen.
That's just it. All the foundlings I can find are exactly like Stephen.
Andrew!
I want a man with no relations and no schooling. That is, a man who would be out of the running altogether if he weren't a strong man. Oh, and I can't find him. Every blessed foundling nowadays is snapped up in infancy by Barnardo House or school board officers or boards of guardians, and if he shows the least ability, he's fastened on by the schoolmasters, trained to win scholarships like racehorses, crammed with second-hand ideas, drilled and disciplined in docility and what they call good taste, lamed for life so that he is not fit for anything but teaching. If you want to keep this foundry in the family, you'd better find an eligible foundling and marry him to Barbara.
Ah, Barbara, your pet. You would sacrifice Stephen to Barbara.
Cheerfully. And you, my dear, would boil Barbara to make soup for Stephen.
Andrew, this is not a question of our likings and dislikings. It is a question of
just as
duty.
much as it is your duty to submit to your husband. Come, Biddy.
It is your duty
These
to make
tricks
Stephen
of
your
government
successor.
Class are of no use to me. I have the power in this matter, and I am not going to be humbugged into using it for your purposes.
Andrew, you can talk my head off, but you cannot change wrong into right. And your tie is all on one side. Put it straight.
It won't stay unless it's pinned.
I beg your pardon.
No, come in, Stephen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
He knows all about the tradition, I suppose?
Yes. It is what I told you last night, Stephen.
I understand you want to come into the cannon business.
I go into trade? Certainly not.
Oh. Well, in that case, then...
Cannons are not trade, Stephen. They are enterprise.
I have no intention of becoming a man of business in any sense. I have no capacity for business and no taste for it. I intend to devote myself to politics.
My dear boy, this is an immense relief to me, and I may trust it may prove an equally good thing for the country. I was afraid you would consider yourself disparaged and slighted.
Stephen, I cannot allow you to throw away an enormous property like this.
Mother, there must be an end of treating me as a child, if you please. Until last night, I did not take your attitude seriously because I did not think you meant it seriously. But I find now that you left me in the darkest of matters which you should have explained to me years ago. I am extremely hurt and offended. Any further discussion of my intentions had better take place with my father as between one man and another.
Stephen!
You see, my dear, it is only the big men who can be treated as children.
I'm sorry, Mother, that you have forced me
Oh,
to...
yes, that's all right, Stephen. She won't interfere with you anymore. Your independence is achieved. You have won your latchkey. Don't rub it in. And above all, don't apologize. Now, what about your future as between one man and another? Oh, I beg your pardon, Biddy. As between two men and a woman.
I quite understand, Stephen. By all means, go your own way if you feel strong enough.
So, it is settled that you do not ask for the succession to the cannon business.
I hope it is settled that I repudiate the cannon business.
Oh, come. Don't be so devilishly sulky. It's boyish. Freedom should be generous. Besides, I owe you a fair start in life in exchange for disinheriting you. You can't become prime minister all at once. Haven't you a turn for something? How about literature, art, and so forth?
I have nothing of the artist about me, either in faculty or character, thank heaven.
A philosopher, perhaps, eh?
I make no such ridiculous pretension.
Ah, just so. Well, there is the army, the navy, the church, the bar. The bar requires some ability. But what about the bar?
I have not studied law, and I'm afraid I have not the necessary push, I believe that is the name barristers give to their vulgarity, for success in pleading.
Oh, rather a difficult case, Stephen. Hardly anything left but the stage, is there? Well, come. Is there anything you know or care for?
I know the difference between right and wrong.
Well, you don't say so! What? No capacity for business? No knowledge of law, no sympathy with art, no pretension to philosophy? Only a simple knowledge of the secret that has puzzled all the philosophers, baffled all the lawyers, muddled all the men of business, and ruined most of the artists. The secret of right and wrong. Why, man, you're a genius. Master of masters, a god. At 24, too.
You're pleased to be facetious. I pretend to nothing more than any honorable English gentleman claims as his birthright.
Oh, that's everybody's birthright. Look at poor little Jenny Hill, the Salvation lass. She would think that you were laughing at her if you had asked her to stand up in the street and teach grammar or geography or mathematics or even drawing room dancing. But it never occurs to her to doubt that she can teach morals and religion. You are all alike, you respectable people. You can't tell me the bursting strain of a 10-inch gun, which is a very simple matter, but you all think that you can tell me the bursting strain of a man under temptation. You daren't handle high explosives, but you're all ready to handle honesty and truth and justice and the whole duty of man and kill one another at that game. What a country. What a world.
Well, what do you think he had better do, Andrew?
Oh, just what he wants to do. He knows nothing and he thinks he knows everything. That points clearly to a political career. Give him a private secretaryship of someone who can get him an undersecretaryships. Then leave him alone. He'll find his natural and proper place at the end of a treasury bench.
I am sorry, sir, that you forced me to forget the respect due to you as my father. I am an Englishman, and I will not hear the government of my country insulted.
The government of your country? I am the government of your country. I am Lazarus. Do you suppose that you and a half-dozen amateurs like you sitting in a row in that foolish gabble shop can govern Undershaft and Lazarus? Oh, no, my friend. You will do what pays us. You'll make war when it suits us and keep peace when it doesn't. You will find out that trade requires certain measures when we have decided on those measures. When I want anything to keep my dividends up, you will discover that my want is a national need. When other people want something to keep my dividends down, you will call out the police, the military, and in return, you shall have the support and applause of my newspapers and the delight of imagining that you are a great statesman. Government of your country. Be off with you, my boy, and play with your caucuses and leading articles and historic parties and great leaders and burning questions and the rest of your toys. I'm going back to my counting house to pay the piper and call the tune.
Really, my dear father, it is impossible to be angry with you. You don't know how absurd all this sounds to me. You are very properly proud of having been industrious enough to make money, and it is greatly to your credit that you have made so much of it. But it has kept you in circles where you are valued for your money and deferred to for it, instead of in the doubtless very old-fashioned and behind-the-times public school and university where I formed my habits of mind. It is natural for you to think that money governs England, but you must allow me to think I know better.
And what does govern England, pray?
Character, father, character.
Whose character? Yours or mine?
Neither yours nor mine, father, but the best elements in the English national character.
Stephen, I have found your profession for you. You're a born journalist. I'll start you with a heightened weekly review. There.
Go and get ready, Mama. The carriage is waiting.
Good day, my dear. Good afternoon, Mr. Lomax.
How'd you do?
Quite well after last night, Euripides, eh?
As well as can be expected.
That's right. Oh. So you are coming to see my death and devastation factory, Barbara?
Came yesterday to see my salvation factory. I promised you a return visit.
You'll find it awfully interesting. I've been through the Woolwich arsenal, and it gives you a ripping feeling of security, you know, to think of all the beggars we could kill if it came to fighting. Still, it must be rather an awful reflection for you from the religious point of view, as it were. You're getting on and all that, you know.
You don't mind Charlie's imbecility, Papa, do you?
Oh, I say.
Mr. Lomax looks at the matter in a very proper spirit, my dear.
Just so. That's all I meant, I assure you.
Are you coming, Stephen?
Oh, well, I'm rather busy. Oh well, yes, I'll come. That is, if there is room for me.
I can take two with me in my little motor I'm experimenting with for field use. You won't mind that it's rather unfashionable. It's not painted yet. Yeah, but it is bulletproof.
Oh, I say.
The carriage from me, thank you. Barbara doesn't mind what she's seen in.
I say, Dolly, old chap, do you really mind the car being a guy? Because, of course, if you do, I'll go in it. Still, I
prefer it.
Thanks awfully, old man. Come, Sarah.
Why are we two coming to this works department of hell? That is what I ask myself.
I have always thought of it as a sort of pit where lost creatures with blackened faces stirred up smoky fires and were driven and tormented by my father. Is it like that, Dad?
My dear, it is a spotlessly clean and beautiful hillside town.
With a Methodist chapel? Oh, do say there's a Methodist chapel.
There are two. A primitive one and a sophisticated one. There's even an ethical society, but it's not much patronized, as my men are all strongly religious. In the high explosive sheds, they object to the presence of agnostics as unsafe.
And yet they don't object to you.
Do they obey all your orders?
Oh, I never give them any orders. When I speak to one of them, it's well, Jones, is the baby doing well? And has Mrs. Jones made a good recovery? Well, nicely, thank you, sir. And that's all.
But Jones has to be kept in order. How do you maintain discipline among your men?
Well, I don't. They do. But you see, the one thing Jones won't stand is any rebellion from the man under him, or any assertion of social equality between the wife of the man with 4 shillings a week less than himself and Mrs. Jones. Well, of course, they all rebel against me, theoretically. Practically every man of them keeps the man just below him in his place. I never meddle with them. I never bully them. I don't even bully Lazarus. I say that certain things ought to be done, but I don't order anyone to do them. I didn't say, mind you, that there is no ordering about and no snubbing or even bullying. The men snub the boys and order them about, and the carmen snub the sweepers, the artisans snub the unskilled laborers, the foremen drive and bully both the laborers and the artisans. The assistant engineers find fault with the foremen, and the chief engineers drop on the assistants. The departmental managers were the chiefs, and the clerks have tall hats and hymn books and keep up the social tone by refusing to associate on equal terms with anyone. The result is a colossal profit, which comes to me.
You really are what I was saying yesterday.
What was he saying yesterday?
Never mind, my dear. He thinks I have made you unhappy. Have I?
Do you think I can be happy in this vulgar, silly dress? I, who have worn the uniform. Do you understand what you have done to me? Yesterday, I had a man's soul in my hand. I set him in the way of life with his face to salvation. But when we took your money, he turned back to drunkenness and derision. I will never forgive you that. If I had a child and you destroyed its body with your explosives, if you murdered Dolly with your horrible guns, I could forgive you if my forgiveness would open the gates of heaven to you. But to take a human soul from me and turn it into the soul of a wolf, that is worse than any murder.
Does my daughter despair so easily? Can you strike a man to the heart and leave no mark on him?
Ah, you're right. He can never be lost now. Oh, where was my faith?
Oh, clever, clever devil.
You may be a devil, but God speaks through you sometimes. You have given me back my happiness. I feel it deep down now, though my spirit is troubled.
Well, you have learnt something. That always feels at first as if you have lost something.
Well, take me to the factory of death and let me learn something more. There must be some truth or other behind all this frightful irony. Come, Dolly.
My guardian angel. Avant.
You must not mind Cusins, Father. He is a very amiable, good fellow, but he is a Greek scholar and naturally a little eccentric.
Quite so. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Mother,
Don't be apologetic, Stephen. And don't forget that you have outgrown your mother. Perivale St. Andrews lies between 2 Middlesex hills, half climbing the northern one.
Well?
Not a ray of hope. Everything perfect. Wonderful. Real. It only needs a cathedral to be a heavenly city instead of a hellish one.
Have you found out whether they have done anything for old Peter Shirley?
They have found him a job as a gatekeeper and timekeeper.
Oh.
He's frightfully miserable. He calls the timekeeping brain work, and he says he isn't used to it. Yet his gate lodge is so splendid that he's ashamed to use the rooms and skulks in the scullery.
Oh, poor Peter.
have you two seen the place? Why did you leave us?
I wanted to see everything I was not intended to see. Then Barbara wanted to make the men talk.
Have you found anything discreditable?
No! They call him Dandy Andy, and are proud of his being a cunning old rascal, but it's all horribly, frightfully, immorably, unanswerably perfect.
Heavens, what a place! Did you see the nursing home?
Did you see the libraries and schools?
Did you see the ballroom and the banqueting chamber in the town hall?
Have you gone into the insurance fund, the pension fund, the building society, the various applications of cooperation?
Well, have you seen everything? I'm sorry, I was called away. News from Manchuria.
Good news, I hope.
Oh, very.
Another Japanese victory.
Oh, I don't know. Which side wins is not a concern to us here. No, the good news is that the aerial battleship is a tremendous success. The first trial, had wiped out a fort with 300 soldiers in it.
Dummy soldiers?
No, the real thing. Well, Stephen, what do you think of the place?
Oh, magnificent. A perfect triumph of organization. Frankly, my dear father, I've been a fool. I had no idea what it all meant. The wonderful forethought, the power of organization, the administrative capacity, the financial genius, the colossal capital it represents. Now, I've been repeating to myself as I came through your streets, peace hath her victories, no less renowned than war. I have only one misgiving about it all.
Out with it?
Well, I cannot help thinking that all this provision for every want of your workmen may sap their independence and weaken their sense of responsibility. And greatly as we enjoyed our tea at that splendid restaurant, how they gave us all that luxury and cake and jam and cream for threepence, I really cannot imagine. Still, you must remember that restaurants break up home life. Look at the continent, for instance. Are you sure so much pampering is rarely good for the men's characters?
Well, you see, my dear boy, when you're organizing civilization, you have to make up your mind whether trouble and anxiety are good things or not. If you decide that they are, then I take it, you simply don't organize civilization. And there you are, with trouble and anxiety enough to make us all angels. But if you decide the other way, you might as well go through with it. However, Stephen, our characters are safe here. A sufficient dose of anxiety is always provided by the fact that we may blow ourselves to smithereens at any moment.
By the way, Papa, where do you make the explosives?
In separate little sheds, like that one. When one of them blows up, it costs very little, and only the people quite close to it are killed.
My good fellow, you needn't get into such a state of nerves. Nothing's going to happen to you, and I suppose it wouldn't be the end of the world if anything did. British pluck is what you want, old chap.
Oh, anything wrong, Mr. Bilton?
Gentleman walked right into the high explosive shed and lit a cigarette, sir, that's all.
Quite so. Do you happen to remember what you did with the match?
Oh, come, I'm not a fool. I took jolly care to blow it out before I chucked it away.
The top of it was red hot inside, sir.
Well, suppose it was. I didn't chuck it in any of your messes.
Think no more of it, Mr. Lomax. By the way, would you mind lending me your matches? Thank you.
You know, these high explosives don't go off like gunpowder, except when they're in a gun. But when they're spread loose, you can put a match to them without the least risk. They just burn quietly like a bit of paper. Did you know that, Undershaft? Have you ever tried?
Not on a large scale, Mr. Lomax. Bilton will give you a sample of gun cotton when you're leaving, if you ask him. You can experiment with it at home.
Bilton will do nothing of the sort, Papa. I suppose it's your business to blow up the Russians and the Japanese, but you might really just stop short of blowing up poor Charlie.
Oh, my owness, there's no danger.
Andrew, you shouldn't have let me see this place.
Why not, dear?
Never mind why. You shouldn't have, that's all. To think of all this town being yours, and that you have kept it to yourself all these years.
Well, it doesn't belong to me. I belong to it. It is the Undershaft inheritance.
It is not. Your ridiculous cannons and that noisy banking foundry may be the Undershaft inheritance, but all that plate and linen, All that furniture and those houses and orchids and gardens belong to us. They belong to me. They're not a man's business. I won't give them up. You must be out of your senses to throw them all away. And if you persist in such folly, I will call in a doctor.
Where did you get those flowers, my dear?
Your men presented them to me in your William Morris Labor Church.
No, it only needed that, a labor church.
Yes, with Morris's words in mosaic letters, 10 feet high round the dome. No man is good enough to be another man's master. The cynicism of it.
Well, it shocked the men at first, I'm afraid, but by now they take no more notice of it than of the 10 Commandments in the church.
Andrew, you are trying to put me off the subject of the inheritance by profane jokes. Well, you shan't. I don't ask it any longer for Stephen. He has inherited far too much of your perversity to be fit for it. But Barbara has right as well as Stephen. Why should not Adolphus succeed to the inheritance? I could manage the town for him, and he can look after the cannons, if they are really necessary.
I should ask nothing better if Adolphus were a foundling. He's exactly the sort of new blood that is wanted in English business. But he is not a foundling, and that's an end of it.
Not quite. I think, mind, I am not committing myself in any way as to my future course, but I think the foundling difficulty can be got over.
What do you mean?
Well, I have something to say which is in the nature of a confession.
Oh.
Confession?
Say.
Yes, a confession. Listen, until I met Barbara, I thought myself in the main an honorable, truthful man, because I wanted the approval of my conscience more than anything else. But the moment I saw Barbara, I wanted her far more than the approval of my conscience.
Adolphus!
It is true. You accused me yourself, Lady Brett, of joining the army to worship Barbara. So I did. She bought my soul like a flower at a street corner, but she bought it for herself.
What, not for Dionysus or another?
Dionysus and all the others are in herself. I adored what was divine about her, and was therefore a true worshipper. But I was romantic about her too. I thought she was a woman of the people, and that a marriage with a professor of Greek would be far beyond the wild social aspirations of her rank.
Adolphus!
Oh, I say!
When I learned the horrible truth.
What do you mean by the horrible truth, pray?
She was enormously rich, that her grandfather was an earl, and that her father was the Prince of Darkness.
Shut.
And that I was only an adventurer trying to catch a rich wife that I stooped to deceive about my birth.
Your birth? Now, Adolphus, don't dare to make up a wicked story for the sake of these wretched cannons. Remember, I've seen photographs of your parents, and the Agent General for Southwestern Australia knows them personally and has assured me that they are most respectable married people.
So they are in Australia, but here they are outcasts. Their marriage is legal in Australia, but not in England. My mother is my father's deceased wife's sister. And in this island, I am consequently a foundling. Is the subterfuge good enough, Machiavelli?
Pity. This may be a way out of the difficulty.
Stuff! A man can't make cannons any the better for being his own cousin instead of his proper self.
You are an educated man. That is against the tradition.
Once in 10,000 it happens that a schoolboy is a born master of what they try to teach him. Greek has not destroyed my mind, it has nourished it. Besides, I did not learn it at an English public school.
Well, I cannot afford to be too particular. You have cornered the foundling market. Let it pass. You are eligible, Euripides. You are eligible.
Surely. Yesterday morning, when Stephen told us all about the tradition, you became very silent, and you have been strange and excited ever since. Were you thinking of your birth then?
When the finger of destiny suddenly points at a man in the middle of his breakfast, it makes him thoughtful.
Aha. So you have had your eye on the business, my young friend, have you?
Take care. There is an abyss of moral horror between me and your accursed aerial battleships.
Well, never mind the abyss for the present. Let us settle on the practical details and leave your final decision open. You know that you will have to change your name. Do you object to that?
Would any man named Adolphus, any man named Dolly, object to being called something else?
Well, good. Now, as to money, I propose to treat you handsomely from the beginning. You shall start at 1,000 a year.
1,000. You dare offer a miserable 1,000 to the son-in-law of a millionaire? No, by heavens, Machiavelli, you shall not cheat me. You cannot do without me, and I cannot without you. I must have 2,500 a year for 2 years. And at the end of the time, if I am a failure, I go. But if I am a success and stay on, you will give me the other 5,000.
What other 5,000?
Make up the 2 years at up to 5,000 a year. The 2,500 is only half pay in case I should turn out a failure. The third year, I must have 10% on the profit.
10%? Come on, my man, do you know what my profits are?
Enormous, I hope. Otherwise, I shall require 25%.
Mr. Cusins, this is a serious matter of business. You are not bringing any capital into the concern.
What? No capital? Is my mastery of Greek no capital? Is my access to the subtlest thought, the loftiest poetry, yet attained in humanity, no capital? My character, my intellect, my life, my career, what Barbara calls my soul, are these no capital? Say another word and I double my salary.
Be reasonable.
Mr. Undershaft, you have my terms. Take them or leave them.
Very well. I note your terms, and I offer you half.
Half?
Half.
You call yourself a gentleman and you offer me half?
I do not call myself a gentleman, but I offer you half.
This to your future partner, your successor, your son-in-law.
You are selling your own soul, Dolly, not mine. Leave me out of the bargain, please.
Come. I will go a step further for Barbara's sake. I'll give you 3/5, but that is my last word.
Done.
Done in the eye. I only get 800, you know.
By the way, Mac, I am a classical scholar, not an arithmetical one. Is 3/5 more than half or less?
More, of course.
Oh, I would have taken 250. Have you ever how can you succeed in business when you are willing to pay all that money to a university don who is clearly not worth the junior clerk's wages? Well, what will Lazarus say?
Lazarus is a gentle romantic Jew who cares for nothing but string quartets and stalls at fashionable theaters. He will get the credit of your rapacity at money matters, as he has hitherto had the credit of mine. You're a shark of the first order, Euripides. So much the better for the firm.
Is the bargain closed, Dolly? Does your soul belong to him now?
No, the price is settled, that is all. The real tug of war is still to come. What about the moral question?
There is no moral question in the matter at all, Adolphus. You must simply sell cannons and weapons to people whose cause is right and just, and refuse them to foreigners and criminals.
No, none of that. You must keep the faith of an armorer, or you don't come in here.
What on earth is the faith of the armorer?
To give arms to all men who can offer an honest price for them, without respect to persons or principles, to aristocrat and republicans, to the nihilist and czar, to capitalist and socialist, to Protestant and Catholic, to burglar and policeman, to black man, white man, yellow man, to all sorts and conditions, all nationalities, all faiths, all follies, all causes, and all crimes. The first Undershaft wrote up on his shop, if God gave the hand, let man not withhold the sword. The second wrote up, all have the right to fight, none have the right to judge. The third wrote up, to man the weapon, to heaven the victory. The fourth had no literary turn, so he didn't write up anything, but he sold cannons to Napoleon under the nose of George III. The fifth wrote up, peace shall not prevail, save with a sword in her hand. The sixth, my master, was the best of them all. He wrote, nothing is ever done in this world until men are prepared to kill one another if it is not done. Well, after that, there was nothing left for the seventh to say. So he wrote up simply, unashamed.
My good Machiavelli, I shall certainly write something up on the wall. Only as I shall write it in Greek, you won't be able to read it. But as to your armorer's faith, if I take my neck out of the noose of my own morality, I am not going to put it into the noose of yours. I shall sell cannons to whom I please and refuse them to whom I please. So there.
From the moment when you become Andrew Undershaft, you will never do as you please again. Don't come here lusting for power, young man.
If power were my aim, I should not come here for it. You have no power.
None of my own, certainly.
I have more power than you, more will. You do not drive this place, it drives you. And what drives the place?
A will of which I am part.
Father, do you know what you are saying? Or are you laying a snare for my soul?
Don't listen to his metaphysics, Barbara. The place is driven by the most rascally part of society, the money hunters, the pleasure hunters, the military promotion officers, and he is their slave.
No, not necessarily. Remember the armorer's faith. I will take an order from a good man as cheerfully as from a bad one. And if you good people prefer preaching and shirking to buying my weapons and fighting the rascals, don't blame me. I can make cannons. I cannot make courage and conviction. You tire me, Euripides, with your morality-mongering. Ask Barbara. She understands. Tell her, my love, what power really means.
Before I joined the Salvation Army, I was in my own power. And then the consequence was that I never knew what to do with myself. When I joined it, I had not enough time for all the things I had to do.
Just so. And why was that, do you suppose?
Yesterday, I should have said, because I was in the power of God. But you came and showed me that I was in the power of Bodger and Undershaft. Today, I feel... how can I put it into words? Sarah, do you remember the earthquake at Cannes when we were little children? How little the surprise of that first shock mattered compared with the dread and horror of waiting for the second. That is how I feel in this place today. I stood on the rock I thought eternal, and without a word of warning, it reeled and crumbled under me. I was safe, with an infinite wisdom watching me, an army marching to salvation with me. And in a moment, at a stroke of your pen in a checkbook, I stood alone, and the heavens were empty. That was the first shock of the earthquake. I am waiting for the second.
Oh, come, my daughter. Don't make too much of your little tin pot tragedy. What we do here, when we spend years of work and thought and thousands of pounds of solid cash on a new gun or an aerial battleship that turns out just a hair's breadth wrong after all, we scrap it. Scrap it without wasting another hour or another pound on it. Well, you have made yourself something that you call a morality or a religion or whatnot. It doesn't fit the facts. Well, scrap it. Scrap it and get the one that does fit. That is what is wrong with the world at present. It scraps the obsolete steam engines and dynamos, but it won't scrap old prejudices, its old moralities and its old religions and its old political constitutions. What's the result? In machinery, it does very well, but in morals and religion and politics, it's working at a loss that brings it nearer to bankruptcy every year. Don't persist in that folly. If your old religion broke down yesterday, get a newer and better one for tomorrow.
Oh, how gladly I would take a better one to my soul. But you offer me a worse one. Justify yourself. Show me some light through the darkness of this dreadful place with its beautifully crafted workshops and respectable workmen and model homes.
Cleanliness and respectability do not need justification, Barbara. They justify themselves. I see no darkness here, no dreadfulness. In your salvation shelter, I saw poverty, misery, cold and hunger. Gave them bread and treacle and dreams of heaven. I give them 30 shillings a week to 12,000 a year. They find their own dreams, but I look after the drainage.
And their souls?
I saved their souls just as I have saved yours.
You saved my soul. What do you mean?
I fed you, and clothed you, and housed you. I took care that you should have money enough to live handsomely, more than enough, so that you could be wasteful, careless, and generous. That saved your soul from the 7 deadly sins.
The 7 deadly sins?
Yes, the deadly 7. Food, clothing, firing, rent, taxes, respectability, and children. Nothing can lift those 7 millstones from a man's neck but money, and the spirit cannot soar until those millstones are lifted. I lifted them from your spirit. I enabled Barbara to become Major Barbara, and I saved her from the crime of poverty.
You call poverty a crime?
The worst of crimes. All the other crimes are virtues beside it. All the other dishonors are chivalry itself by comparison. Poverty blights whole cities, spreads horrible pestilences, strikes dead the very souls of all who come within sight, sound, or smell of it. What you call crime is nothing. A murder here and a theft there, a blow now and a curse then. What do they matter? They're only the accidents and illnesses of life. They're not 50 genuine professional criminals in London. But there are 1 million of poor people, abject people, dirty people, ill-fed, ill-clothed people. They poison us, morally and physically. They kill the happiness of society. They force us to do away with our own liberties and to organize unnatural cruelties, for they fear that they should rise against us and drag us down into their abyss. Only fools fear crime. We all fear poverty. You talk of your half-saved ruffian in West Ham. You accuse me of dragging his soul back to perdition? Well, bring him here. I will drag his soul back again to salvation for you. Not by words and dreams, but by 38 shillings a week, a sound house in a handsome street, and a permanent job. In 3 weeks, he'll have a fancy waistcoat. In 3 months, a tall hat and a chapel sitting. Before the end of the year, he'll shake hands with a duchess at Primrose League meeting and join the Conservative Party.
And will he be the better for that?
You know he will. Barbara, don't be a hypocrite. He will be better fed, better housed, better clothed, better behaved, and his children will be pounds heavier and bigger. That would be better than an American cloth mattress in a shelter, chopping firewood, eating bread and treacle, and being forced to kneel down from time to time to thank heaven for it. Knee drill, I think you call it. It's cheap work converting starving men with a Bible in one hand and a slice of bread in the other. I will undertake to convert West Ham to Mohammedanism on the same terms. Try your hand on my men. Their souls are hungry because their bodies are full.
And leave the East End to starve?
I was an East Ender. I moralized and starved until one day I swore that I would be a fulfilled free man at all costs, that nothing should stop me except a bullet, neither reason nor morals nor the lives of other men. I said, "Thou shalt starve ere I starve." And with that word I became free and great. I was a dangerous man until I had my will. Now I am a useful, beneficent, kindly person. That is the history of the most self-made millionaires, I fancy. When is it the history of every Englishman we shall have in England worth living in?
Stop making speeches, Andrew. This is not the place for them.
My dear, I have no other means of conveying my ideas.
Your ideas are nonsense. You got oil because you were selfish and unscrupulous.
Not at all. I had the strongest scruples about poverty and starvation. You moralists are quite unscrupulous about both. They make virtues of them. I had rather be a thief than a pauper. I'd rather be a murderer than a slave. But I don't want to be either. But if you force the alternative on me, then, by heaven, I'll choose the braver and more moral one. I hate poverty and slavery worse than any other crimes whatsoever. And let me tell you this. Poverty and slavery have stood up for centuries against your sermons and leading articles. They will not stand up against my machine guns. Don't preach at them. Don't reason with them. Kill them.
Killing. Is that your remedy for everything?
It is the final test of conviction. The only lever strong enough to overturn a social system, the only way of saying must. Let 670 fools loose in the street, and 3 policemen can scatter them. But huddle them together in a certain house in Westminster, and let them go through a certain ceremonies and call themselves certain names until at last they get the courage to kill, and your 670 fools become a government. Your pious mob fills up ballot papers and imagine it governing its masters. But the ballot paper that really governs is the paper that has a bullet wrapped around it.
It's perhaps why most intelligent people, I'd never vote.
Vote? Bah! When you vote, you only change the names of the cabinet. When you shoot, you pull down governments. Inaugurate new epochs, abolish older orders, and set up new. Is that historically true, Mr. Learned Man, or is it not?
It is historically true. I loathe having to admit it. I repudiate your sentiments. I abhor your nature. I defy you in every possible way. Still, it is true. But it ought not to be true.
Ought. Are you going to spend your life saying ought like the rest of you moralists? Turn your oughts into shalls, man. Come and make explosives with me. Whatever men can blow up can blow society up. The history of the world is the history of those who have the courage enough to embrace this truth. Have you the courage to embrace it, Barbara?
Barbara, I positively forbid you to listen to your father's abominable wickedness, and you, Adolphus, ought to know better than to go about saying that wrong things are true. What does it matter whether they are true if they are wrong?
What does it matter if they are wrong if they are true?
Children, come home hastily. Andrew, I am exceedingly sorry I allowed you to call on us. You are wickeder than ever. Come at once.
It's no use running away from wicked people, Mamma.
It is every use. It shows your disapprobation of them.
It does not save them.
I can see that you are going to disobey me. Sarah, are you coming home or are you not?
I dare say it's very wicked of Papa to make cannons, but I don't think I shall cut him out on that account.
The fact is, there's a certain amount of tosh about this notion of wickedness. It doesn't work. You must look at facts. Not that I would say a word in favor of anything wrong, but then you see all sorts of chaps are always doing all sorts of things, and we have to fit them in somehow, don't you know? What I mean is you can't go cutting everybody, and that's what it comes to. Perhaps I don't make myself clear?
You are lucidity itself, Charles. Because Andrew is successful and has plenty of money to give to Sarah, you will flatter him and encourage him in his wickedness.
Well, with the carcasses, there will be eagles to be gathered, don't you know?
Oh.
Hey, what?
Precisely. By the way, may I call you Charles?
Delighted. Charlie is the usual ticket.
Ah, okay. Biddy.
Don't
No.
dare call me Biddy. Charles Lomax, you are a fool. Adolphus Cusins, you are a Jesuit. Stephen, you are a prig. Barbara, you are a lunatic. Andrew, you are a vulgar tradesman. Now you all know my opinion, and my conscience is clear at all events.
My dear, you are the incarnation of morality. Your conscience is clear, and your duty done when you have called everyone names. Come, Euripides. It's getting late, and we all want to go home. Make up your mind.
Understand this, you old demon.
Adolphus!
Leave him alone, Biddy. Proceed, Euripides.
You have me in a horrible dilemma. I want Barbara.
Ah, Like all young men, you greatly exaggerate the difference between one young woman and another.
Quite true, Dolly.
Also want to avoid being a rascal.
Ha! You lust for personal righteousness, for self-approval, for what you call a good conscience, for what Barbara calls salvation, for what I call patronizing people who are not so lucky as yourself.
I do not. All the poet in me recoils from being a good man, but there are things that I must reckon with. Pity.
Pity? The scavenger of misery?
Well, love.
I know. You love the needy and the outcast. You love the oppressed races, the Negro, the Indian riot, the Pole, the Irishman. Do you love the Japanese? Do you love the Germans? Do you love the English?
Oh, every true Englishman detests the English. We are the wickedest nation on earth, and our success is a moral horror.
That is what comes of your gospel of love, is it?
May I not even love my father-in-law?
You who wants your love, man? By what right do you take the liberty of offering it to me? I will have your due heed and respect, or I will kill you. But your love? Damn your impertinence.
I may not be able to control my feelings, Mac.
You are fencing, Euripides. You're weakening. Your grip is slipping. Come, try your last weapon. Pity and love have broken in your hand. Forgiveness is still left.
Oh, forgiveness is a beggar's refuge. I am with you there. We must pay our debts.
Well said. Come, you'll suit me. Remember the words of Plato.
Plato, you dare quote Plato at me?
Plato says, my friend, that society cannot be saved until either the professors of Greek take to making gunpowder, or else the makers of gunpowder become professors of Greek.
Oh, tempter. Cunning tempter.
Come, man, choose. Choose.
But perhaps Barbara will not marry me if I make the wrong choice.
Perhaps not.
You hear?
Father, do you love nobody?
I love my best friend.
And who is that, pray?
My bravest enemy. That is the man who keeps me up to the mark.
You know, the creature is really a poet in his own way. Suppose he is a great man after all.
Suppose you stop talking and make up your mind, my young friend.
You are driving me against my nature. I hate war.
Hatred is a coward's revenge for being intimidated. Dare you make war on war? Here are the means. My friend Mr. Lomax, well, is sitting on some.
Oh, I say, you don't mean this thing is loaded, do you? My ownest, come off of it.
If I'm to be blown up, the more thoroughly it is done, the better. Don't fuss, Charlie.
Your own daughter, you know.
Oh, I see. Well, my friend, may we expect you here at 6 tomorrow morning?
Not on any account. I will see the whole establishment blown up with its own dynamite before I get up at 5. My hours are healthy, rational hours, 11 to 5.
Well, come when you please. Before a week, you'll be coming at 6 and staying until I turn you out for the sake of your own health. Bilton! My dear, let us leave these two young people to themselves for a moment. Bilton, I'm going to take you through to the garden cotton shed.
You can't take anything explosive in there, sir.
What do you mean? Are you alluding to me?
Oh, no, ma'am. Mr. Undershaft has the other gentleman's matches in his pocket.
Oh, right.
I beg your pardon.
Quite right, Bilton, quite right. Here you are. Come, Stephen. Come, Charles. Bring Sarah.
Oh, I say. Infernal nonsense. Pure scientific ignorance.
Am I all right, Bilton?
No, ma'am. Mr. Undershaft's the... sorry. You have to put on the list slippers, miss. That's all. We got him inside.
Dolly, old fellow, think. Think before you decide. Do you feel that you are a sufficiently practical man? It is a huge undertaking, an enormous responsibility. All this massive business will be Greek to you.
Oh, I think it will be much less difficult than Greek.
Well, I just want to say this before I leave you to yourselves. Don't let anything I have said about right and wrong prejudice you against this great chance in life. I have satisfied myself that the business is one of the highest character and a credit to our country. I am very proud of my father.
Barbara, I'm going to accept his offer.
I thought you would.
You understand, don't you, that I had to decide without consulting you. If I had thrown the burden of that choice on you, you would sooner or later have despised me for it.
Yes, I did not want you to sell your soul for me any more than for this inheritance.
Not the sale of my soul that troubles me. I have sold it too often to care about that. Sold it for a professorship. Sold it for an income. I have sold it to escape being imprisoned for refusing to pay taxes for hangman's ropes and unjust wars and things that I abhor. What is all human conduct but the daily and hourly sale of our souls for trifles? What I am now selling it for is neither money, nor position, nor comfort, but for reality and for power.
You know that you will have no power, and that he has none.
I know. It is not for myself alone. I want to make power for the world.
I want to make power for the world too, but it must be spiritual power.
I think all power is spiritual. These cannons will not go off by themselves. I've tried to make spiritual power by teaching Greek, but the world can never really be touched by a dead language and a dead civilization. The people must have power, and the people cannot have Greek. Now, the power that is made here can be wielded by all men.
Power to burn women's houses down and kill their sons and tear their husbands to pieces.
You cannot have power for good without having power for evil too. Even mother's milk nourishes murderers as well as heroes. This power, which only tears men's bodies to pieces, has never been so horribly abused as the intellectual power, the imaginative power, the poetic, religious power that can enslave men's souls. As a teacher of Greek, I gave the intellectual man weapons against the common man. I now want to give the common man weapons against the intellectual man. I love the common people. I want to arm them against the lawyer, the doctor, the priest, the literary man, the professor, the artist, and the politician, who, once in authority, are the most dangerous, disastrous, and tyrannical of all fools, rascals, and impostors. I want a democratic power strong enough to force the intellectual oligarchy to use its genius for the general good or else perish.
Is there no higher power than that artillery shell?
Yes. But that power can destroy the higher powers just as a tiger can destroy a man. Therefore, man must master that power first. I admitted this when the Turks and Greeks were last at war. My best pupil went out to fight for Hellas. My parting gift to him was not a copy of Plato's Republic, but a revolver and 100 Undershaft cartridges. The blood of every Turk he shot, if he shot any, is on my head as well as on Undershaft's. That act committed me to this place forever. Your father's challenge has beaten me. Dare I make war on war? I dare. I must. I will. And now, is it all over between us?
Silly baby Dolly. How could it be?
Then oh, for my drum.
Oh, take care, Dolly, take care. Oh, if only I could get away from you and from father and from it all. I could have the wings of a dove and fly away to heaven.
Leave me.
Yes, you and all the other naughty, mischievous children of men. But I can't. I was happy in the Salvation Army for a moment. I escaped from the world into a paradise of enthusiasm and prayer and soul-saving. But the moment our money ran short, it all came back to Bodger. It was he who saved our people. He and the Prince of Darkness, my papa. Undershaft and Bodger. Their hands stretch everywhere. When we feed a starving fellow creature, it is with their bread, because there is no other bread. When we tend the sick, it is in the hospitals they endow. If we turn from the churches they build, we must kneel on the stones of the streets that they pave. As long as that lasts, there is no getting away from them. Turning our backs on Bodger and Undershaft is turning our backs on life.
But you were determined to turn your back on the wicked side of life.
There is no wicked side. Life is all one. And I never wanted to shirk my share in whatever evil must be endured, whether it be sin or suffering. I wish I could kill you with middle-class ideas, Dolly.
Middle-class? A snub. A social snub to me, from the daughter of a foundling.
That is why I have no class, Dolly. I come straight out of the heart of the whole people. If I were middle class, I should turn my back on my father's business, and we should both live in an artistic drawing room, with you reading the reviews in one corner and I in the other playing at the piano, playing Schumann. Both very superior persons, and neither of us a bit of use. Sooner than that, I would sweep out the gun-cotton shed and be one of Bodger's barmaids. Do you know what would have happened if you had refused Papa's offer?
No wonder.
I should have given you up and married the man who accepted it. After all, my dear old mother has more sense than any of you. I felt like her when I saw this place. Felt that I must have it. That never, never, never could I let it go. Only she thought it was the houses and the kitchen ranges and the linen and the china, when really it was all the human souls to be saved. Not weak souls in starved bodies crying with gratitude for a scrap of bread and treacle, but full-fed, quarrelsome, snobbish, uppish creatures, all standing on their little rights and dignities and thinking that my father ought to be greatly obliged to them for making so much money for him. And so he ought. That is where salvation is truly wanted. My father shall never throw it in my teeth again that my converts were bribed with bread. I have got rid of the bribe of bread. I have got rid of the bribe of heaven. Let God's work be done for its own sake. The work he had to create us to do, because it cannot be done by living men and women. When I die, let him be in my debt, not I in his. And let me forgive him as becomes a woman of my rank.
And the way of life lies through the factory of death?
Yes. Through the raising of hell to heaven and of man to God, through the unveiling of an eternal light in the valley of the shadow. Oh, did you think my courage would never come back? Did you believe that I was a deserter? That I, who have stood in the streets and taken my people to my heart and talked of the holiest and greatest things with them, could ever turn back and chatter foolishly to fashionable people about nothing in a drawing room? Never, 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 never. Major Barbara will die with the colours. Oh, and I have my dear little Dolly boy still, and he has found me my place and my work. Oh, glory, hallelujah!
My dearest, consider my delicate health. I cannot stand as much happiness as you can.
It is not easy work being in love with me, is it? But it's good for you. Mama! Mama! I want Mama!
She is taking off her slippers, dear. Well, what does she say?
She's gone right up into the skies.
Barbara, when will you learn to be independent and to act and think for yourself? I know as well as possible what that cry of "Mama, Mama" means. Always running to me.
Pip, Pip.
How dare you say pip, pip to me, Sarah? You are both very naughty children. What do you want, Barbara?
I want a house in the village to live in with Dolly. Come and tell me which one to take.
6 o'clock tomorrow morning, my young friend.